My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. All right, Ontario Police is gang stalking with the City of Ontario. Vehicle 1107, license plate 1601783. The entity is sounding train activity. They're monitoring 7PTZ601. And again, the environment The entities molest me with impossible light. That's the sex offense and the terrorism by a demon. That's a part of a police department gang stalking. Doing so in concert with the rest of the demons, who are the people of the state, routinely engaging in that sexual violence. The entities sounding train activity, that's amplified audible activity while they're stalking together. P.O.C. License plate NGV 1916, Texas, ASGB 306. License plate. These are sex offenders. They want to touch with light, but they don't want you to get their license plate. License 8MSK962. Those are sex offenders. That's the state of California. That's the Ontario police that you hear stalking by helicopter. They're also stalking on the roads and the highways. You're stalking because the entity is maintaining a specific environment, an environment that's specific to what is the elements of monitoring, specific to the targeted individual, conducive for engaging in criminal surveillance. And psychological torture is inherent to stalking somebody with impossible light, to stalking with someone under a fake sun, which this is exactly where the fake sun's going to rise at 415 North Euclid, and this is where they're engaged in molestation. 7MBF 792. Demons. They're all demons. And this is, again, the demons that are immigrants engaging in this terrorism in California and the city of Ontario. They're being deported. Okay? License plate 2117X3, I believe. 7ERK173. This is P.O.C. at 415 North Euclid Avenue, where a population all night long is monitoring me. And monitoring is demonic. Okay, so this is obsession that the demon-possessed have with me. They're also sexually obsessed. They stalk me in bathrooms, male and females. They stalk me while I'm in the bathroom. They're obsessed with my vagina. They are exhibiting obsession while they also are always touching with light in ways that are entirely impossible. The obsession of the demon-possessed is proven to you by the evidence of the fake sun. Okay, this is P.O.C. It is currently 6:22 a.m. Chevron, ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue. They're engaged in a sex offense and molestation. So is Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue. They're engaged in a sex offense, and they're doing so with the government. The police department that's engaged in kidnapping is also a violent sex offender, and that's also why they're being disbanded. Okay, they are mentally ill, and their ongoing obsession is something that they currently are demonstrating, have been demonstrating, that they can't seem to contain or refrain from. That's also why they're being disbanded. That's an unlawful, that's a terrorizing threat, while you have criminals that are engaging in obsessive and demonic behaviors designed to keep another person under surveillance while wanting to also masquerade as being law enforcement and also falsely depict the character of the person that they're stalking. 8ALT773, they're all demons, and the Ontario police is gang stalked with every single last one. Understand, that's the government acting directly. And the entity sounded train activity. So the thousands of people that are in traffic, because this is all surveillance, every single last one is representing a communication device. They're all monitoring one after another, after another, after another. These are the demons that sit in front of the bathroom to make sure that they're stalking in the path, to make sure that they can keep me under surveillance while going in and out, and also going into the bathroom, because that's how obsessed they are with knowledge that my panties are down, and they just want to be next to me and in that environment while they're pacing all around like sex offenders, obsessing with engineered light, obsessing with stalking in the path. Demon-possessed psychopaths. License 9AUZ444. This is the sex offense of the entity that is demon-possessed, that engages in the pattern of conduct, and they do so with the corrupt police department. All right, the entity is engaging in this, and this is committed in furtherance of murder. It is the unabated program of psychological torture, and it is that which is preceding what is murder by an entity that is actually a serial killer, because they are routinely targeting American citizens. And this is that which is happening where the entity does not have a criminal record on the greater scheme. In the greater scheme of things, this is a population that's engaged in public corruption. They murder people together, they stalk and psychologically torture them together, and they also haunt and terrorize them. They're the demon-possessed population that practices. And every business that you are familiar with is engaging in that. ARCO, Chevron, Starbucks, you name it. Every grocery store, every market, every business, the state of California, the DMV, the San Bernardino Human Services Department, public transportation, the demon-possessed are gang stalking, and they do so through a commercial means. It is embedded into society. And the demon-possessed are mentally ill psychopaths, and that's what I'm showing you, their pattern of stalking with light. All right, it is currently, again, 6:24 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, being a stalker, license DZ13MO4. That's a paper plate on graffiti protective coatings. I'm going to document them because they are systematically engaged in terrorism and psychological torture and harassment, and they are engaged in criminal stalking and furtherance of the conspiracy to commit murder. They're gang stalking, and they're doing so with the city of Ontario routinely. This demon is coming from behind the veterinary office adjacent to the CHEVRON, crossing path conduct. While I'm walking in a vacant parking lot, somebody to drive by, somebody to be present in that path. This is what you're doing, by the way, outside of a bathroom where you're walking around an engine or light. They're stalking with light as well. They're sex offenders while they engage in this predatory conduct, this stalking conduct in and around bathrooms. That's what graffiti protective coatings is engaging in. That's a psychopath that's operating a business, a vehicle associated with a business, and you're going to prosecute that business as well. Because all the targeted individual knows is that a stranger that's operating a vehicle that they can see the logo, but they're subject to terrorism, and that logo is a terrorizing threat, and you're going to prosecute that business for threatening your life and safety. And that's what graffiti protective coatings represents, gang stalking every day on Euclid Avenue at the Ontario Town Square in Ontario, like I've been documenting. I documented those terrorists years ago, graffiti protective coatings, and they're engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture and hiring immigrants. That's relevant for what is the ability to raid that business. That's engaged in criminal activity with the immigrant population, which is the same for all of the businesses in the state of California, by the way. 9SRX564 23079V2. Stalking with demons that are in the middle of the street monitoring me. 78101A4. Driving a white van, no windows on it, and the back tinted windows. 78101A4. License 8YJP455. And that demon's sitting in the middle of the street, this residential street, 6:39 a.m. while graffiti protective coatings is stalking in the path, while demons are stalking me inside of the small little Chevron market while I buy food because they're obsessed with stalking me everywhere that I go, while the entity is maintaining aerial surveillance, stalking in the sky space. License 8KZA429 is also where they live on this street, stalking, monitoring, with the demons that park in the middle of the street, stalking in the path. Okay, this is what the entity is doing where they live, and this is what the entity is doing where they work. This is what the entity is doing on the roads and the highways. It's not traffic in California. The demon possessed are engaged in surveillance on the roads and the highways, and you need to understand that there are not car accidents by the demon possessed. They're murders. All right, they are insurance scams. All right, license 88741B3, 8NXU677. And while you're gang stalking in the middle of the residential street, you've just exposed everybody else on that street that's monitoring with you, who are not in any sort of private property. This is the government that's gang stalking through every household, represented by every license plate, sharing in what our communication devices use to engage in surveillance with sex offenders and terrorists like graffiti protective coatings. License star 463YES. 6EWZ484. 9RWJ141. 8DKM825. And I want to be clear, these are sex offenders. The entity is keeping my vagina under surveillance. License 8VPE055 is very much aware every time I go into the restroom and I pull my panties down. That's how far-reaching surveillance is. I'm documenting the entity that is gang stalking while I'm at the library. The entire city of Ontario, the state, is engaged in surveillance. License 80787Y1. This is another demon sitting in a commercial vehicle, monitoring, and it is Concrete Paving Incorporated. Hiring any immigrants, because that's subject to what is the ability to raid that business and deport those that are not only unlawfully in the country, but even those that are lawfully, and they have all their supposed proverbial papers, if you will. They're engaged in terrorism, and the Department of Homeland Security has therefore jurisdiction to deport them as well. All right, license plate 9AKV705 creates light activity while Concrete Paving Incorporating is monitoring with them, and they're concentrating using their car alarm, sounding it while I'm standing here. It's a method of activity creation. License again. Business CTNT, Concrete Paving Incorporated, California 0302484, monitoring with the people of the state. All right, and what you'll see are the elements of monitoring. Demon immediately comes out, gets into their car. A demon surrounding with light, license 8VGR018, and a demon that's in a commercial vehicle just keeping his head down while his demonic co-defendants are maintaining the elements of monitoring with him. He is stalking in the path, and so is CTNT, Concrete Paving Inc., stalking in the path. while demons who are indeed stalking where they live, who are indeed engaging in surveillance, sitting in their cars on what is this, E Street, monitoring while the demons are sitting in the middle of the street with that white van. They're all monitoring together. And the moment that I walk down the street, that's when the demons, like cockroaches, start moving around and light comes on and they start engaging what is monitoring, especially as I stand still. 6YYL375. This is why I've documented also the demon possessed as I walk through neighborhoods and document the gang stalking neighborhood. The entity flies over and around by helicopter. I documented this in the city of Upland. It's going to come up. It's already published. The population is being prosecuted for domestic terrorism. Okay? License plate 9AQK721. All right, and again, CT&T is license 80787Y1. They're engaged in the pattern of conduct, and construction work, working on the curbs, is a method of what is light activity and audible activity. Griffith Company is showing you that. These gang stalking construction companies on Hope Boulevard, where the Ontario International Airport then concentrates plane activity over me on Hope Boulevard, while that entity keeps the fake sun over me on the bus on Hope Boulevard to the city of Fontana, where you're engaged in construction, where you're engaged in what is delivering babies at a hospital, where you're engaged in cleaning toilets, where you're engaged in what is pushing a stroller, where you're engaged in mowing the grass, when you're engaged in standing there on the sidewalk on what you presuppose is public property, having the right to do that. No, you don't. The entity is engaged in engaged in what is criminal surveillance. And so this is changing the status of everything because of the nature of the invasion of privacy inherent to criminal surveillance unbeknownst to American citizens. And because of the nature of that criminal surveillance, which is underway by the government, who is engaged in what is stalking when you don't have a warrant or probable cause. You're stalking. And you're stalking in ways in which the Constitution hasn't even articulated. You're gang stalking with a population of people who are psychopaths at 6 a.m. sitting in their cars while they're stalking me and waiting for me to come out of Chevron. While a bunch of demons like graffiti protective coatings are stalking in the path as they are monitoring as a network of demons, making sure that they're in the path, keeping me under surveillance together. That's why I can walk down the street and a bunch of cockroaches come to life, immediately coming outside to get inside of their car, wherever it is that I'm positioned, to maintain activity, maintaining aerial surveillance in that neighborhood wherever I'm at, as I've already documented. Okay? License 7VID319, 8UGW570, the same P.O.C. Let me show you this. And this is where the demon is stalking with light, opening up his car door, getting into his car. And this is where I'm positioned, okay? This is a demon at Plum and East Street. At 302 East Street, they're monitoring. License 66759Y2, monitoring with the state. That's crossing path with the plane. You'll see a plane over the vehicle, and what do you see is alignment. The plane is in alignment with my position. The demon, where I'm standing, while he's opening his vehicle, that's a method of stalking with light. This is mental illness that you're looking at. These are psychopaths, and these are the demon possessed. And their formula, the pattern, their behavior is such that they are stalking in your path with the method of light. That's what you see with the fake sun. All right, this is occurring at what is facilitating venue 308 Plum. License 7LMI137 6HVD272. Oops, hold on. Listen to what this demon is stating while he's monitoring me. All right, again, that's 308. That is 308. Let me get that. That is 308 East Street. And this is, again, license plate. These are the demons conspiring your murder, gang stalking you, doing so with the government, engaging in criminal summoning, and that's federal prison, and he's gang stalking where he lives. The federal government engaging in what you understand you have basis to raid their homes, to come and raid the neighborhood. You have a jurisdiction to engage in, first of all, that's federal prison as well. That's the government that's stalking you by the police. The government that then calls the police, oh my gosh, she's harassing me outside of my home, while they're gang stalking you while you are walking through the neighborhood. That's, again, 308 East Street. While the government's flying over in alignment with me, while he gets out of his vehicle, you're not constitutionally protected to do any of that, and it's also not a private property. This is speaking to the exploitation of the Constitution, where the so-called freedom of the people, the privacy that we have, it does not include to engage in surveilling another person in concert with the government. That's using planes and helicopters, that's stalking by fire, police, and ambulance, that is monitoring in the same manner that that population is. And by the way, were the people of the state engaging in that by themselves, you would be prosecuted for stalking. It would still be relevant for terrorism, while a group of weirdos that are not working with the government to keep you under surveillance are targeting you. But the entity is doing so with the government. And that pattern of conduct is already established. At 308 East Street, guess where the fake sun is? Over me at 308 East Street. That's why the government is stalking with a method of light, as that third party, which represents the entity, is engaging what is a method of stalking in the path when they're using vehicles, when they're using flashlights, when they're using their bikes, when they're using whatever it is. It's a method of light. These are demons that are stalking in the path with light. What you're looking at in traffic is you're looking at demons who are stalking. Okay, CTNT is a crossing path, maintaining that presence. I want to be clear, CTNT. I'm going to document this business with regard to hiring immigrants and engaging in what is domestic terrorism with them. They are engaging in that pattern of conduct. Again, CTNT, this is another third party. They get right in position. CTNT, Concrete Paving Incorporated. And they're engaged in ongoing terrorism. The entity is engaging in what is ceaseless gang stalking. I document license 8VGR018 crossing path again, that's pacing. I document the entity does not cease to engage in gang stalking. They maintain that ongoing unspoken system. That the entity is consumed and invested and obsessed with ongoing gang stalking, and it's represented by businesses that are going to be prosecuted for that impunity while they're conspiring murder. This is what the Ontario International Airport is engaging in. This is what the Ontario Police Department is engaging in, what the Ontario Fire Department 9RBM 126, and the entity is engaging in this while regardless of the fact that they're exposed. So I sit there, I document, I read all their license plates, I document them. Again, I'm documenting in every way that I have at my disposal, and I'm also publishing it on the internet because this is a public investigation showing the corruption of the United States government that's engaging in surveillance and targeted me regarding criminal activity that the government and this entity that's gang stalking already committed, has been monitoring me since I was a child, knows exactly who I am, and have conspired my murder by now engaging in the pattern of conduct that I'm documenting. This is the entity that, in the face of that evidence, will not stop stalking. That's the threat that CTNT is posing. They're doing so with the people of the state. You're posing that threat while you're coming out engaging and monitoring with the government. That's not a coincidence. While the plane is crossing path, while you'll see that in the picture too. You'll see the plane, you'll see the vehicle, you'll see the demon from 308 East Street crossing path by getting in the vehicle, opening the car door, using that vehicle as a method of light while the plane is crossing path. That's the entity engaging in both direct and vicarious engagement in the criminal elements of monitoring and their gang stalking together. They are the demon possessed. The government acts directly. The government acts vicariously, who are the people of the state. And the people of the state are corrupt businesses like CTNT. And you're also mindful of the fact that businesses like CTNT, like Graffiti Protective Coatings, like Brightview, the municipality, the city of Ontario, they hire immigrants and they engage in criminal activity with them. So it's the government and corrupt businesses, and that's relevant to the ways in which laws shall change. They should change because the entity is engaging in criminal activity with the immigrant population. License plate, I can't really see that one. With the immigrant population, and they're also doing so like the municipality, Paul Leon, hiring the immigrant population, and they're engaged in terrorism. They're engaged in criminal activity. They're paid to engage in gang stalking me. The city of Ontario is focused on monitoring me. That's why the entire city is stalking me, proven through a fake sun for the duration of the day in the city of Ontario. License 6V27387. Okay, any immigrants, whether they're legally here or not, they're subject to deportation based on the terrorism that the city is engaged in with them. All right, and that's why the entity is following me around in the city in that specific environment by planes and helicopters, fire, police, and ambulance who are criminally monitoring and facilitating that monitoring. All right, license plate 6CSP379. They're all monitoring my vagina as residents in the city of Ontario. 9JOU715. They're all sex offenders. 9FJR013. 9TGH181. They're all stalking all night long, maintaining surveillance on the roads and the highways where they all know where I'm sleeping. License 5DNK311. 6SEY051, 8NAX015. This is P.O.C. All right, and what you heard, that demon stating in the background, hey, that's audible activity. First of all, he's monitoring, which is also getting to the malice, but it's harassment at all for the government to say anything to you, which is harassment and threatening you while you're documenting the government that is stalking you and stalking you in the most absurd, corrupt, and demented manners, very malicious. Because you're never supposed to be able to connect the dots that the people of the state are stalking you and that they're stalking you in the shoes of the government. pursuant to a whole targeting system. And not only is that connection already established, the entity is still engaging in conduct such that they have individual rights to stop you from documenting them gang stalking you. Those are the delusional psychopaths that are subject to what is both diagnosis and criminal convictions, all right, for conspiracy to murder, because that's what gang stalking is. All right, and businesses, again, graffiti protective coatings, you're going to prosecute that business for conspiring murder, for engaging in terrorism, for engaging in psychological torture, for theft committed as an entity. Tracy Banks and Jason Isaac Fields, demons lying on my character while they're gang stalking. Understand that that's a deliberate act occurring together. Stalking, license 6KGH937. All right, license plate 9PKL109. Bunch of homosexuals stalking and monitoring my vagina. They're very much concerned with my genitalia, and these sex offenders have been concerned with my genitalia since I was a child, okay, since I was born. And that's the same with the state of California, okay? A Quesada is not stalking under the fake sun at the OVITT Family Community Library at 12:13 p.m. for any other reason other than the fact that she is a homosexual. She is a demon-possessed gang stalker who wears an Ontario police uniform, and she is representing the entity of lesbians, homosexuals that are obsessed with my vagina, stalking me as females who are demon-possessed. Stalking me in places like bathrooms, stalking me with regard to molesting me with impossible light, stalking me in the middle of the night, lurking like a creeper, like a sexually violent and perverted and demented homosexual, okay, who is obsessed with me. That is every single last woman in the state of California that have that same identical spirit, okay? It's the spirit of a sex offender. And that's why A Quesada is also letting you know what is wrong with every single woman. They are demon-possessed, and they're all homosexuals who are violent sex offenders stalking in bathrooms. And stalking in bathrooms on behalf of the rest of the homosexuals who are monitoring me together, interfering and violating my privacy together. It's the entity that enters that bathroom. It's the entity that's pacing around that bathroom. It's the entity that's maintaining the path around that bathroom. All right, and they're sex offenders. So that there's no secret surrounding that. And there is nothing that is hidden regarding that. And that's why I openly expose that to you. And those are by their conduct. You are known by what you do. You're a homosexual. You think because you're married that you're heterosexual? That's like stating, well, I only had sex with a woman one time, but I'm not gay. You are defined by what you do, regardless of how you want to label it or how delusional you are or how much you lie about what you do. The reality is that the women are stalking. The women are obsessed with me. The demon-possessed are obsessed with your genitalia. The demon-possessed are stalking you everywhere, including in bathrooms. The demon-possessed are making sure that you never have any privacy while they're engaging in that. And the demon-possessed are addicted to stalking you while they're also demons monitoring you in the spirit. That's a homosexual that's obsessed with my vagina. And then also goes home to whatever male counterpart she has with regard to what is actually a homosexual and a psychopath. That's an entity. And A Quesada of the Ontario Police is directly engaged in that conduct, that behavior, and it is shared by a population. Sex offenders have no business in law enforcement. You can analyze all of that. But I just want to be clear, A Quesada of the Ontario Police Department is speaking to what is a sexually violent pattern of conduct that the women participate in and engage in. Okay, this is what Tracy Banks is engaged in. This is what every female that I know, I'm not concerned about them going to the bathroom. I'm not monitoring them when their panties go down. I'm not stalking them in the middle of the night. I'm not lying about them and what they're doing so that I can steal from them and I have to gang stalk them so I can falsely and lie on them and talk about them being crazy so I can get their money. Meanwhile, I'm obsessed with them and I want to be them. I want to steal their underwear and put it under my pillow. I want to pray to Satan and hope that Satan will let me exchange genitalia parts with them. I want to be in their skin and wear the pores on their skin and their hair follicles. Like, that's how obsessed the demon-possessed are. That's why they're stalking with things such as impossible light and under a fake sun. Their mental illness is proven through their criminal pattern of conduct, which shows that they are all targeting, and they're all targeting a specific person. They know exactly what I'm stating when I document, and they're molesting with impossible light, as though a psychopath is telling itself, I'm going to get prosecuted, I'm going to go to prison, and that's me retaliating against you. No, that's you being documented, and that's going to be you as an entity being diagnosed. But the delusional psychopath that's obsessed with me, that includes a police department, that includes a fire department of demons. They're all dead. None of this is an exaggeration. All right. The entities engaged in what is not only criminal conduct, the criminal conduct is based on their condition. You can only be engaged in gang stalking as a demon. They're demon possessed. They're already dead. License 8J59338, 7HDP452, 7XPJ132. A bunch of homosexuals are stalking me in the bathroom, and the people of the state, all these businesses that I am outside documenting, they're a part of what is that ongoing violation of my privacy. They're together monitoring. That's not an individual. And also under the law, when you're gang stalking, that's not an individual. And you don't have any individual rights while you're gang stalking. You don't have any privacy rights. This is an entity that's being stripped down. They're entirely malicious and they're delusional. License 8NRX862, you are a straight predator, making sure you sit down right in front of that bathroom so that I have to make sure to make sure that I get past you so that you can keep me under surveillance. And you already know what's going on between my legs in the bathroom. You're a sex offender. You are a whole sex offender. That same obsession, that's why they're spending millions of dollars stalking me using planes and stalking me using helicopters, just like I was discussing last night. I can't make that up. You're seeing them engaged in that expenditure of resources on me alone. You're bringing your kids along to stalk me. You're bringing your wife and your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband along to stalk me. That's you. That's you on the job, obsessed with me, not doing your job. And you're not doing your job in engineer light. You're monitoring. You don't like how the legal analysis shows how your focal point is the target individual, and that's the reality. You're just a demon that didn't want that to be known, and you want the target individual to feel a certain way about themselves because you're a maniacal psychopath. You're a psychopath, and that is a spirit. Understand that this is a population of a people that are actually mentally ill. That's why CT&T and graffiti protective coatings. That's why the Ontario International Airport, the government, the city of Ontario, is getting in planes to stalk me. All right, you would think that I was a figure like Martin Luther King or something who shouldn't be a threat to the government, but that's a large public figure, okay? And the government actually doesn't even have any basis outside of criminal activity to keep them under surveillance. But I'm stating I'm not even on that level with regard to a private citizen. I should be a private citizen. I don't do anything to raise any sort of eyebrows. I mind my business. I did not ever have like a platform of following. I'm not even into social media. I did this to protect myself and prosecute the government. Because I saw at the outset, somebody that's gang stalking you at 308 East Street is doing so while the government is threatening you. And then this demon has the audacity and they know that you're documenting. So it's not only that, first of all, the malice behind that. They also know that you're documenting. Why are you asking me what I'm doing? First of all, they're monitoring. That's why they're asking. Asking those questions that they know the answer to is audible activity they're monitoring. Second of all, the substance of that audible activity is malicious, as though you're a stranger, as though I'm on your property, as though I'm violating you in some way. And that's the entity that engages in the pattern of conduct. And that also escalates to criminal summoning. That, you're talking about harassment and kidnapping of the target individual that you're gang stalking. You're obsessed with their genitalia. That's the truth. That's the hard facts of the P.O.C. You're a psychopath gang stalking, and then you're hostile because I know it. And not only do I know, I've already proven it. And you know that I'm documenting you, and I'm going to document that as well. That's how the entity ends up in federal prison. This is the federal government that has jurisdiction to literally raid the neighborhoods. And this is an unprecedented basis, and I mean for the immigrants. You have the jurisdiction in a way in which you've never contemplated under the federal constitution and state constitutions, because they're engaged in surveillance where they live, because they're engaged in surveillance where they work, because you already have that, like you can go to Home Depot, but you're doing it based on what is the designation of that property, or how that property is being used. For example, as a business establishment, I'm telling you right now, 308 East Street in Ontario, California, they're engaged in criminal surveillance, as is the entire city of Ontario. And the federal government, Department of Homeland Security, as I am blowing the whistle and letting you know about the entire immigrant population, you have the jurisdiction under federal law to raid them where they live. The entire neighborhood, city by city. And I want to be clear, the state of California is in need of that, because the entity has been engaged in serial killings. The entity has been engaged in what is rapes and the disappearances of innocent people. And in this corrupt entity, they are putting even those criminal acts that it commits on Dateline, on 48 Hours, on 2020, as though they committed an investigation. The demon possessed of the Los Angeles Police Department, of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, prime example. They're engaged in surveillance. They know exactly what's happening. It's this entity that's engaged in criminal monitoring, criminal surveillance, as I'm showing you, that then goes on TV shows where they get to keep their jobs, get paid, get a level of attention and notoriety for what is corrupt conduct that they're engaging in. The people of the state license 05657F3 is the one that committed the crime, and they know that, and they conduct an investigation to keep themselves employed, to maintain the illusion of privacy, because we don't know, we're not out in the streets watching you. We have to find out through facts and circumstances where we're engaging in what is a law-abiding investigation in order to put it together, engaging in law enforcement. No, they're not. No, they are not. And they're on TV shows entertaining you, lying. Okay? The entities engaging in this conduct, and they're doing so, and I want to be clear, this is relevant to the ability to raid not just the immigrants. The United States government, you have the jurisdiction to raid the people of the state where they live, period, because they're all engaged in criminal surveillance. It's not just the immigrant population, but I want to let you know, with regard to the current climate deporting terrorists, you can raid the whole state based on the criminal conduct. This is why it is so unfortunate for the government to be at this level of corruption, because now you are fully vulnerable. You're fully vulnerable. Oh, you're monitoring everywhere through everyone at all times. You don't have any protection, no shelter in that home. That's a crime scene where the federal government can come pick you up. Okay, and the entities engage in that, and you need to understand that. And that's, again, just a note, you're paying attention to the evidence that my public investigation, and you have jurisdiction under the Constitution as it currently stands, that this entity is in violation of. And while they're in violation of it, they are also fully vulnerable to the ways in which justice is going to be meted out. You're subject to being raided wherever you are, because the entities engaged in terrorism everywhere. License 9BWA823, stalking at Lemon and D Street. License 9NTV316, stalking at Lemon and D Street. And the City of Ontario is stalking in the path, maintaining flashing light at the C Street turn circle. The C Street turn circle where the fake sun is present at 1 in the afternoon, where the Ontario police are stalking by helicopter, they're stalking with light activity. License 9MEG736, that's MANA ADHC CBAS. The gang stalkers that pick up the old people from the 280 North women, they're stalking. 5TSP366. 7K, these are demons stalking at the stop sign. License 7KOP883. This is ongoing surveillance with the City of Ontario. Paul Leon, that's engaged in surveillance. License 8XTG362. License, one demon after another. License plate 8YIR705. And this is what the entity is doing. I want to be clear. Everywhere that every home, they're not private properties, because this is changing the designation, because the entity is engaged in, it's not actually changing the designation, it's actually revealing what the designation is while they're exploiting the Constitution. Private property is a real thing. License CX37G01 paper on a gray Tesla, monitoring with the City of Ontario. And their private property is a real thing. However, the entity is exploiting the Constitution, and they are assuming that position of being on private property, and it is serving to facilitate criminal activity. It's not private property when you are in the shoes of the government engaging in surveillance. The state of California has removed itself from such designations. You don't have any private property where the government is engaging in surveillance absent any warrant or probable cause. You don't have that umbrella of protection. That's not private property. It's not private property while ongoing monitoring. Everything that's happening is a matter of public information amongst the entity that is gang stalking, that is engaging in surveillance. When I say something, everybody's listening. When my panties go down, everybody is listening. When the entity walks in that indisposed state, in that private space, everybody is listening. The entity is engaged in surveillance in bathrooms. That's also supposed to be a place where privacy is reasonably expected. And guess what? It's an illusion. There is no such privacy. And the evidence of the fake sun is that ongoing confirmation to you. They don't have any protection where they're engaging in this pattern of conduct. They don't have it. And the federal government, with regard to prosecution, with regard to disincentivizing terrorism, with regard to targeting terrorists, you can raid any and everywhere based on the criminal conduct and the unlawful threat posed by the government. You can raid them where they live. You can raid them as they're traveling. You can engage in literally what is the something analogous to like a DUI stop. You're talking about what is the entire entity that's engaged in the pattern of conduct. The entity, remember, that's a term of art. The entire population, every business, every person, every location, criminal surveillance. And I have provided a substantial body of evidence proving that. There's no exception. There's no anomaly. There's no one, in other words, that's not engaging in it. No one. And nothing, no establishment that's not engaging in it. All right, license plate. GERYDER.
The Ontario downtown luxury apartments at 320 North Euclid Avenue, they're gang stalking. They're driving, pacing in and out of that garage, gang stalking. Those psychopaths drive in and out, that's pacing in engineer light, while engineer light flies all about inside while they're monitoring as a way of life. That entire apartment complex, that's where the Department of Homeland Security, you can raid that entire apartment complex. You can come in and raid this whole parking garage while they're engaged in surveillance inside of that parking garage. You can come and raid the Ontario Town Square. You can raid the Ontario City Hall, which you already know. Okay, that is the criminal headquarters in the city of Ontario. And so is the Ontario Police Department. Okay, you already know that those are going to be the first ones hit. But the entities engaged in this, I want to be clear, it's the civilian population. Those are the ones where the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking me in concert with them, where they live, where they work, where they're on the roads and the highways, where the fake sun is over me, where the documentation of engineer light, which is evidence of psychological torture and terrorism. Okay, and that you're going to be subject to terrorism by the federal government hunting you down like the animal that you are. Okay, like the enemy of the United States that you are. That's how we would treat anybody else, including somebody like Osama bin Laden. Be prepared for that treatment, because that's what you are. That's exactly what you are. Engaging in serial killings of American citizens. And then, as I documented, ongoing acts of terrorism, as though you're retaliating against what is federal law that's existing on the books that you're in violation of. It's documented on the record how much of an enemy to the United States you are. Be prepared to be hunted down like the enemy that you are. The enemy that you established yourself as. And you are vulnerable everywhere that you go, Satan. Where you're at work, while you're at home, while you're in public, like you would like to refrain to it, everywhere is public. There is no private property. And you are exposed to a raid at any moment, at any time. While the entity is engaged in surveillance. The Ontario International Airport, definitely subject to a raid. The entities engaged in this, all the corporate headquarters for these gang stalking airlines. They're engaged in terrorism throughout the country and the world. Fully exposed to raids. And by the way, they're also hiring the immigrant population. You have bases on multiple bases. You have a jurisdiction based on the criminal system. Okay? And based on the nature of that crime. I just wanted to go through that. And again, this is the end. I'm documenting last night. I'm leaving out of the library and I'm documenting that ongoing chaos. I'm documenting that ongoing warfare as an American citizen. I'm waking up this morning and the entity is the fake sun is being covered up. I've already documented the fake sunrise at 6:38 a.m. at 415 North Euclid Avenue. Nobody forgot that when I am at the TAD office, when I'm walking on Hope Boulevard and the entity is keeping the fake sun over 1627 East Holt over the same front door on the east side. I documented that in the afternoon while it was at that same address on the west side. Nobody forgot that. When I'm remaining and I go to the United States Postal Service during the 8 a.m. hour. Nobody forgot that when I got on Omnitrans on Hope Boulevard that's driving in the direction east to the city of Fontana, going on the property of the Ontario International Airport, and nobody's forgetting what Southwest, Delta Airlines, United Airlines, Frontier Airlines, Amazon Prime Air, what is UPS, what is FedEx Airlines, what they're all doing under the fake sun that's remaining over Ontario Town Square, over Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue, over Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street, over the OVITT Family Community Library, flying over the 280 North Lemon Apartments, and over the parking lot of the OVITT Family Community Library, where the fake sun is over me. And then you're looking at that Ontario International Airport that could never have the sun over it, but it is. And you're looking at those terminals, and you're mindful of those companies engaged in targeting me using planes, the most terrorizing thing that they could fathom, in order to psychologically torture the person that they plan to murder as an entity. You are fully exposed to being raided at any time, at any place, based on the criminal surveillance that is being exposed in the United States. Based on the criminal conduct, based on the nature of everyone engaging in that crime, you don't have any privacy, and you also don't have any private space. The government's engaging in that conduct, and the proof of the P.O.C. is what is exposing you to what is being targeted, being hunted down like the enemy to the United States that you are. And that's exactly what you are while you're gang stalking. And that's a population of citizens that are engaging in, I don't even like to use that term, but it's domestic terrorism is occurring through and by citizens. So that's, again, the domestic terrorists that are immigrants, deport them. The domestic terrorists that are homegrown, you're going to prosecute them like the enemies that they are, like you wouldn't treat them any different than any foreign enemy. And those domestic enemies also are acting through a commercial means. That's getting to malice, and it's not different. It's the same predator. It's the same terrorists. The people of the state are the ones driving the vehicles. The people of the state are the the people of the state are the ones maintaining those establishments, occupying those establishments. The people of the state are the ones flying those planes with those logos and in the name of any sort of business is the people of the state. And since companies are also identified and treated as persons under the law, and the entity is engaged in what is making a lot of money through these businesses that are engaged in terrorism and psychological torture and making money while doing so, you're going to prosecute the business, and you're going to prosecute the people of the state operating the business. This is how you're stripping down that whole system, and they are all vulnerable at all times, at all places. They're engaged in surveillance at all times, at all places, and exploiting the Constitution. This is what is relevant in substance with regard to this demon that's engaging in terrorism, where he lives, where the federal government is also fully empowered to raid that home based on a terrorist residing there. It is currently 7:13 a.m. This is the pattern of conduct. It is, again, it's September 12, 2025. The entity is engaging in a pattern of the malicious pattern of conduct in doing so while they're stalking with all manner of methods employed that are rooted in what the municipality provides. They're using the vehicles associated with the city. They're using all the establishments associated with the city. They're using their own vehicles like 308 East Street in Ontario, California exhibits, going out of your way to come outside of your home to monitor me. Oh, you don't have any problem with the federal government coming inside of your home to arrest you, to raid you, to frighten you. Imagine how that's going to feel when your door is being kicked down, okay, and you're treated like the terrorist that you are. The entity is engaging in what is gang violence. This is terrorism, and it's gang violence that's done while they are serial killers. They are the demon-possessed, who are the people of the state. That is the state of California, which is a serial killer. It's engaged in systematic murder and systematic kidnapping, while the city of Ontario shows you that through the police, through the fire department, through the airport. And all of those venues, I want to be clear, the fire department, they're all exposed to being raided any moment, at all times. They're not engaged in legitimate provision of services. They're engaged in terrorism. And be prepared to be targeted like the terrorists that you are, like the terrorists that you wanted everybody to see. Guess what they saw? They sat back and they watched. Be prepared for treatment based on what you have demonstrated you are to this country. An enemy, a domestic one. All right, it's currently 7:15 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, the government maintaining, this is a sex offender, this Latino male with the shorts and the communication device. He's stalking, walking by, is crossing path. He's engaged in criminal monitoring, which is committed before you murdering someone. And he's doing it right in my face, conspicuously stalking, while, again, keeping also the evidence of him stalking and terrorizing and harassing me under surveillance. He's engaged in Title 18 federal stalking with the government. That is at 7:20 a.m., stalking by flying over the Ontario Town Square. At the same time, this is the concerted conduct. This is the entity that is stalking with impossible light activity and doing so while the Ontario International Airport is flying over 507 North Euclid Avenue, like I'm documenting last night. The impossible light activity is that. It is light activity that's impossible to occur. The entity is doing, with regard to that, synchronicity regarding their targeting methods. And this demon I'm capturing in images. He's crossing path at the same time that the entity is covering up the sky space. Remember, when you have a fake sun that can stay over one property for 12 hours, this is the entity that's full of demons, and covering up the sky is not the natural weather. That's getting to the malice. That's why I'm describing that. The entity is engaging what is stalking, trying to hide the fact that they're stalking. So if I can't show you the plane over my head, then I'm making it up. Okay, that's the entity's mindset when they're engaged in such conduct, like covering up the fake sun with the evidence already proving that. This is the entity that's stalking as the Ontario International Airport, that's fully exposed to a raid, and they're also engaging in, and so is every corrupt airline. Okay, the entity's engaging in this with the people of the state that are threatening your life, conspicuously stalking you. Now, you're also going to dress that demon up in a police uniform, because that's what the Ontario police do as well, conspicuously stalking you. That level of impunity regarding terrorism, that's exactly what's going to be prosecuted. That tactic, that's called criminal summoning. That's the Ontario Fire, Michael GERKEN, that's fully exposed to a federal raid. The Ontario International Airport and the sirens, it's the same criminal conduct, audible activity. And this is what they were doing last night as I document. Then the entity engaged in playing activity and sounding sirens. They engage in the same tactics, okay? This is the entity that's going to be raided. So they've been exposed as terrorists of this country, as those that hate this country, and that's exactly how they're going to be treated, okay? As the terrorists that they are, as the threat to Americans that they are. All right, this is P.O.C. The entity is engaging in what is the sounding of sirens while crossing path in the sky space. And doing so, I'm trying to capture... Yeah, I can't see that plane. They use a smaller government plane. You're going to see the image at 7:20. This is a sex offender, and I documented him stalking me before. This is a weirdo, and it's the same weirdo spirit. This is a terrorist. This is a co-conspirator to murder. He's fully acting complicit to that plan to murder me while he is stalking, and I've documented him stalking at the Ontario Town Square on more than one occasion. He's a weirdo that comes and sits by me while the entity is stalking in the way that you just heard right now, sounding sirens around me under the fake sun, sounding plane activity flying over me while the government is stalking, and he represents the government stalking me vicariously right in my face, which is what a population is doing, for example, while you're stalking at your house. That's why you're going to be raided. For example, while you're stalking where you work. For example, that's why the OVITT Family Community Library is fully exposed to being raided, especially while the government provides evidence regarding what the OVITT Family Community Library is subjecting me to inside of that venue while I'm outside of it, and you're listening and witnessing me document terrorism. That is exposing that entity to a federal raid, okay? The entity is engaging in that. I want to be clear, that demon's image is going to be captured, and he's documented engaging in terrorism at the same venue with that government on a previous occasion. That's getting to the impunity of the entity that's engaging in that. You're going to target terrorists that act with impunity. This is how the government is able to target you, having the people of the state target you over and over and over and over again. And when they're subject to what are being targeted by the federal government as terrorists, then that's going to disincentivize that. Okay, so the entity is engaged in gang violence, and the gang members are engaging in what is repeatedly and on a systematic basis targeting. That's what the demons of the Ontario International Airport and the demons of the Ontario Police Department and the demons of the Ontario Fire Department are engaging in. And you're going to disincentivize that by things such as, raiding them and arresting them and putting it on the news and prosecuting them for terrorism, which is very real, as the P.O.C. proves. The entity is engaged in this conduct, and the entity does so, which is not evidence that that sex offender is not targeting me. It's evidence that the sex offender at the downtown Ontario luxury apartments is engaging in the same conduct, driving out of the parking garage. Because the pattern of conduct isn't reliant on one person. That's the threat. That's what is relevant to terrorism by a bunch of demons who are stalking you with a population. You're doing the same thing with a population. That demon walked in front of me. They engage in this conduct as I document. I document the people of the state. I read a license plate, and the entity is acting with the Ontario International Airport. They're acting in sync. And so the demons will do it again in another plane, and another plane, and another plane, and another plane. And the failure in logic in that is that, oh, well, it's not that person because we're doing it again, and we're doing it again, and we're doing it again. They're doing it with the population. And you're going to prosecute for terrorism and psychological torture, and it's also relevant to diagnosing. That same evidence is going to be used to diagnose the mentally ill that are engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring. And this is changing the ability for anybody off the street to just get a license to be a pilot. Okay? The reason why these laws and policies exist is so that anybody that has any appetite for violence can engage in gang stalking and also murders. Okay? When Satan gives the demon-possessed the word, they commit sacrifices and they fly into buildings in the same way that you're looking at witnessing them gang stalk me. Okay, that's violence. That's again psychopathic level of violence that the entity is engaging in using planes. There's a lot of money, a lot of manpower. Alan D. Wapner is not ignorant about the planes that are used to stalk. He's not ignorant at all. It's too much money. There's too much. You can't just creep off and sneak off in a whole plane from an airport, and the frequency that I'm documenting, that's exposing. I want to be clear. The Ontario International Airport are full of psychopaths that are not prepared for what is a legal analysis regarding their behavior, regarding their documented criminal conduct, proven to be criminal conduct with regard to that specific environment and that behavioral pattern, which is not a coincidence. It is a documented pattern, and the entity is doing so while I'm documenting the people of the state. And guess what? It's the same people of the state. While you have a population, that one license plate proceeds down the street, and all the rest, the other 350 cars that pass by are all engaging in that together. That's the entity that's engaging in terrorism, and that's engaging in what is providing evidence against the people of the state, contrary to what these demons thought. They're not intellectually sound whatsoever. You're going to prosecute every aspect of that crime, though, like I stated. Justice requires. With regard to how the laws work, terrorism is treated and uprooted regardless of its source. So this is anti-American conduct by the government itself. Anti-American. The city of Ontario is an enemy to the United States. Every level of government is engaged in criminal conduct, and they're not smuggling in drug money. Okay, they're engaged in terrorizing American citizens in order to murder them, to set them up, to steal from them, to sexually violate them, and also to defame them. just to get out their own impulses of violence that they want to act out on somebody. The demon possessed, the wicked. This is what the entity is doing, and it's terrorism. Terrorism is entirely un-American. Un-American. Every business is engaging in terrorism in California. That's what you need to understand about the businesses that you are a consumer of. They are actually un-American. This is what relevant to the state of California and Gavin Newsom, who wants to be the president. He hates America. These are the inevitable implications regarding domestic terrorism in the state. Gavin Newsom isn't ignorant about every airport gang stalking, every law enforcement agency gang stalking, about California Highway Patrol gang stalking. He's not ignorant about that. He places these people in positions of leadership, and that entire department is corrupt, as I've documented it. He's not ignorant about it. He is un-American. He hates this country. He's another demon that wants to be in the position of the presidency. They don't even like this country. They don't even like what it stands for. They don't like people. They're demons. They hate you. They just want to be in a position of authority over you, however, to exploit you. And what you need to know is that the demon possessed are, unbeknownst to you, but it's now you're aware of it, they have a whole system of targeting people in the spirit. That's what gang stalking is. This is a demonic activity. But I've given you tangible evidence proving it. And they're abiding by an identical code of conduct. They never deviate from it. And I'm also legally analyzing that because you're going to prosecute for it. You're going to prosecute. Okay? This is the entity that's engaging in that. And that sex offender is a documented terrorist. He's coming at, again, 7 in the morning. These are the losers that are stalking me all night long. This is what California is consumed with, terrorism. And this is relevant to what is targeting the domestic terrorists, where they are, again, at risk at any time and at any place, a raid by the federal government to deport, by the federal government to arrest in order to prosecute. And that's based on the criminal system that the government, including the governor. You need to understand this is criminal activity that Governor Newsom is engaged in. Just want to let you know, he's engaged in criminal activity. He is already engaging in this conduct, and he's doing so as a malicious actor, somebody that's both in position of authority, a public official, but he's also engaged in this un-American criminal activity. He's doing it in front of your face, also while masquerading as being a lover of this country, and it could not be farther from the truth. He's a criminal. He's a terrorist. He actually hates the United States. Well, that's exactly what is the case and what's proven by the entity that's engaging in this pattern of conduct. And what else is proving that they hate this country? Because while I am an American citizen merely enforcing my rights, all I'm doing is enforcing my rights. And you're mad because you chose to target somebody that knows the law, that knows how to analyze the law, that knows how to analyze your behavior and apply it to the law, that knows the implications behind what you're doing in violation of the law. You picked the wrong person, in other words. And it's letting you know how you would analyze any enemy of the United States, how any law enforcement agency is analyzing a criminal, what is necessary as a prerequisite before they even engage in that. And this is no ordinary crime. It's not just trafficking drugs. They're engaged in terrorism of American citizens. It's un-American. This is exactly what we combat against foreign enemies. Guess what? The enemy is right here in the state of California. The federal government, the Constitution requires, it mandates that they be treated like the enemy that they are. You don't like this country? You have no position, no right, you have no business being in a position of the governor. The governor is a criminal. That's your ability to know that about him. I don't have to be in his presence. You know what it is. You could see him on the news giving you speeches talking about nonsense that he's lying to your face about. And he's doing it under the fake sun. He's doing it under the fake sun. He's engaged in surveillance. And he's not ignorantly doing that under the fake sun. He's lying to you. He's a puppet of Satan. And he wants to be in the seat of the presidency. There's a reason for that. They're engaged in trying to ruin this country. They're engaged in targeting American citizens, and they want positions of leadership in order to do that from the inside out. Okay? The United States has already been sold off. Just want you to know that. And gang stalking is evidence of what is sacrificing this country. You have what is a disloyal criminal in the position of governor. This is criminal conduct that is under the occurring under the watch of Gavin Newsom, but he is also directly engaged in surveillance. And he's also engaged in creating policies that facilitate this ongoing system. You don't have this level of corruption ignorant of any politician, not the mayor, nor any governor of the state. It's not. It's impossible. All right. But not only that, I just want to be clear. The entity is monitoring Ontario downtown luxury apartments, a demon stalking in the path at the entrance, a demon driving at the C Street turn circle, just like that demon that I took a picture of while he walks right in front of me. Those are the psychopaths that hate this country. Don't forget that when they're raided, when the apartment complex gets raided. Okay, when the library gets raided, when the demons at the Ontario Town Square, the Ontario International Airport, when you're raiding these types of venues, this is what you're witnessing. And this is the evidence of them being fully exposed because they're engaged in criminal surveillance at all times and at all places. And they are maintaining position, driving right into the crime scene, downtown Ontario luxury apartments. They're engaged in criminal conduct, driving right into that driveway of that, while the entity that's stalking in the path, just like they are at 308 East Street. That demon's using his vehicle as a means of light activity in perfect alignment with my person. The demons of the city of Ontario stalking in a plane. You'll see it right in alignment with my person. That's what they're doing at the downtown Ontario apartments, driving in, going to the Tesla charger station, doing so as a resident at that venue. It's not a private property. And they're fully exposed to being raided by both the Homeland Security, but also being raided by the feds, period, for terrorism. Okay? This is the entity that's engaging in that. That's the same with Woodside Senior Apartments where Tracy Banks is located. Okay? Or at least that's the last place that terrorist was located. Her sex partner, Jason Isaac Fields, they're both engaged in targeting with the government together. Those two sex partners, they probably know where each other is at. But Tracy Banks was last identified at Woodside Senior Apartments as a resident at that facilitating venue. And guess what? Those old people are subject to a raid. Nobody cares that you're over 65 years old. Because that 65-year-old age sure did not stop them from stalking with the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Police Department, American Medical Response, and the Ontario Fire Department. Didn't stop them, didn't slow them down one bit. Okay? The same fake sun, the same impossible light activity, the same ongoing harassment. Okay, Satan wasn't slowed down at all by those aged demons, enemies of the United States. It wasn't slowed down, not at all. And you are subject to fully exposed to a raid. It's not going to be treated, you're not going to be treated differently because you're an elderly aged demon engaging in terrorism. You really need to be concerned because you're going to be targeted like any other enemy of the United States. Equal treatment under the law means being raided just like any other virile young terrorist. Equal treatment under the law. Okay? The entity is engaging in that, and that's the entity that's surrounding, just like that sex offender that's a creeper stalking me conspicuously at this venue before. This is a freak weirdo that's the same spirit over all of them, coming around while the entity is stalking by plane and helicopter, come and sit down right next to me. Okay, while they do that. Or they're engaging what is walking right by while the entity starts sounding amplified plane activity. All right, or a psychopath that's using a lawnmower belonging to the city of Ontario with the method of light activity. And while they're using that lawnmower, the entity maintaining plane activity over me, flying in helicopter over me. Those are the elements of monitoring. They're monitoring. These are psychopaths that engage in an ongoing campaign that's going to be used to diagnose them. It's going to be used to have them raided and prosecuted and deported. It's going to be used to put them in federal prison because that's where domestic terrorists belong that are homegrown. And domestic terrorists that aren't even natural born citizens, you've been given a privilege to be here, be prepared to be deported. And the entire state of California of immigrants is vulnerable to that because of the criminal conduct, the criminal system that Gavin Newsom is maintaining. And enemies of the United States prove themselves to be as such when an American citizen is exposing it. And what does the government do? The government engages in more of that ongoing un-American conduct, which I also documented. I'm documenting it now. While I'm in the midst of documentation, what is the entity doing? Stalking. These creepers are sitting around stalking at the C Street turn circle, at the downtown Ontario luxury apartment, stalking in the driveway, keeping their foot on the brake. That's a demon that's stalking in the path with light, driving under the turn circle. How do you know that that's stalking? I show you at the OVITT Family Community Library entrance at 10 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, at 6 o'clock. That fake sun doesn't go anywhere. They're stalking in the path. They're doing so in concert with the demons in the sky space, surrounding, in other words, and that's terrorism while you're surrounding somebody like that, engaging that ambush conduct. Those are the demons that are conspiring murder. That's un-American conduct. It's terrorism. It's gang violence, and it's what the entire state of California is practicing, and none of these demons are safe where they live. None of them are safe as they travel. You're talking about rounding them up. You're talking about prosecuting them. And this is what's required with regard to the size of the crime that Gavin Newsom, that every gang stalking mayor, that every city and county in California is engaged in. And I documented many of them in Southern California. All right? But the entire state of California is targeting. The entire state of California is engaged in criminal surveillance. The entire state of California is engaged in terrorism. Okay? It is currently, this is exposure of a system. It's 7:37 a.m. And the entity is engaging in this conduct at the Ontario Town Square, and that's relevant to know. Let me get this video. All right, I am capturing video, so yeah, it looks like the audio cuts out when I capture video, so you'll see video. That's what I was just capturing right now. It's about 7 minutes long, of the Ontario International Airport. And doing so, again, the flights that I'm capturing, the frequency that I'm capturing is not what's illustrated on the website of the Ontario International Airport. That is not noting the planes that are not arrivals and departures. That's why it's not on the flight. The entity is maintaining the airport for ongoing stalking me, and they're also proven to be stalking me because it's surrounded with what is also the unmistakable evidence of the specific environment where the Ontario International Airport is stalking me in Ontario. I've also documented that in places like Fontana, where the fake sun is over me, and you're looking at the entity that you are understanding is targeting with planes in that sky space. But it's relevant because the Ontario International Airport is west of the city of Fontana. So if they're landing at the airport off of Hope Boulevard at the Stater Brothers, where I'm documenting demons, psychopaths hovering over that parking lot like they're landing right there, what is it that they're doing in Fontana in a different city when they're hovering through the sky space and the fake sun is over me in Fontana? That's again, the level of analysis, the level of observation, the level of evidence speaking to, again, psychopaths that are stalking in the most absurd and demented ways. It is psychological torture, while somebody else's mental illness, the demon possessed, their mental illness is supposed to torture you. Their sickness is supposed to torture you. Their sickness is supposed to bother you to your wit's end. And their sickness is being documented in order to diagnose them. And their criminal activity is relevant to their sickness, which is going to be used to prosecute them. All right. And this is forever going to change the landscape, the ability to get a pilot license. Anybody can walk in off the street and go through what a very surface level background check, as I'm showing you. Sex offenders, pedophiles, murderers, kidnappers are going around without any criminal record, where this criminal surveillance system is underway, where you're gang stalking as a whole apartment complex, where you're engaged in what is sexual violence by just conveniently engaging what is leaving and arriving at your apartment, and the demon possessed are maintaining that ongoing pattern of conduct on an ongoing basis as an entity, and that's coexisting with what are the entity that's engaging what is using planes to do that. Oh, that's a whole comprehensive system where they're investing in a lot of money in doing that. And why is that? Why am I so important to use your planes? Not only that, why am I so important for you to sacrifice your freedom? Why am I so important for you to put all of that on the table? Because that's exactly what they just did in another video, and I have over 7,000 of them, of the state of California stalking, understanding that pattern of conduct, which is relevant to criminal surveillance of an inhumane nature. The demon possessed are monitoring your physical movements. The demon possessed are monitoring you on devices. The demon possessed are monitoring you on the internet. And what's happening in relevant position where you're being monitored physically, it is that which is combined with what is happening when you're being monitored on the internet. I've documented that. YouTube being targeted at Woodside Senior Apartments, and it's coinciding with monitoring that's happening on the internet when I'm on venues like YouTube. This is speaking to what is a demonic spirit, okay? That's speaking to what, again, supernatural knowledge about what you're doing all at the time that you're doing it, everything that you're doing. And then you're dealing with the demon possessed that are maliciously targeting you and not looking at you, not talking to you, not addressing you. They don't even know you. They're demon possessed, though. It's a spirit. And that's also mindful, understand, mental illness, guess what? That's of a spirit. Sexual perversion, guess what that is of? A spirit. All right? Malicious conduct like gang stalking, guess what that is of? That psychopathic ongoing appetite, that voyeuristic attitude and endeavor to engage in and derive pleasure from, even sexual gratification from inflicting harm to another. That's a spirit. And that's what's sitting in the office of Mayor Paulion. That's what's sitting in the office of Mayor Aquanetta Warren. Okay, she's no sister to me. We're not sisters because she's black. She's a demon. She's of the devil. And that's why this criminal system is happening in Fontana. The entity, and that's what the entity do. You can cover up the fake sun all day long. You've been looking at the fake sun over me on one street since June of 2025 after this entity committed kidnapping, for which very specific people are going to federal prison. Federal prison. And guess what? They're not getting out. This impunity that you're looking at, they engaged in kidnapping with that same level of impunity. Those kidnappers are still monitoring. All right, those thieves are still monitoring while the Ontario International Airport is acting in furtherance of that same criminal conspiracy. Gang stalking on behalf of an entity. Gang stalking the person that you plan to murder. Gang stalking the person that you kidnapped. Gang stalking the person that you defamed and you were harassing and stole from. And the entity is still gang stalking in furtherance of that criminal conspiracy. You who committed kidnapping are going to federal prison for your ongoing criminal activity that I'm documenting. I'm still documenting you. This is why you engage in criminal conduct with somebody that you know is competent and won't have you dragged. But this is the end. They don't regret that. These are psychopaths. So they would rather go to prison. They would rather drop dead. They would rather lose their liberty because of they're more obsessed with me than they are concerned with maintaining at least freedom, maintaining something less than a reputation in the country and ultimately the world as a terrorist, as a threat to the public. They are more obsessed with me than concerned with those inevitable consequences, because that's what's going to happen regarding the city of Ontario, regarding the leadership in Ontario, regarding every level of government, regarding the population in Ontario, the entire population that's gang stalking me as a matter of evidence. However many households on the census that shows how many households, how many businesses, every single last one are engaged in gang stalking. All right, and the entity is doing so pursuant to what is a very well documented pattern of conduct. That is so detailed. There could never be a son in Hesperia, but I documented it. Not just in Hesperia, but over me, over my hotel room, through my hotel room window. Very specific. Matter of fact, I'm documenting that in every hotel that I stayed in 2024 after I moved from Alvarado Gardens. When I went to Town Place Suites by Marriott, and the fake sun is over that hotel, remaining over me through my sunroof when I'm in the parking lot. And that same parking lot, it doesn't move anywhere. That parking lot stays at the same location, and so does the fake sun in the evening. And the entity is keeping the fake sun over Town Place Suites by Marriott in Monrovia, California, Courtyard by Marriott in Pasadena. The entity is engaging what is keeping that fake sun. The entity is maintaining the fake sun over me in West Covina. Off of Amar Road. The entity is keeping the fake sun in perfect alignment with my window of my vehicle. While the people of the state, these demons, they're the same entity. And while they're driving by, just like what you see inside of Starbucks, engineer light moving all about inside of my car. Impossible, including while they're driving in the shade. Even though sunlight, even if you're driving under the sun, light is not shooting off of your car like some laser light. Okay, this is the entity that knows exactly who I am. And I've been in multiple cities where the entity is targeting, just like the city of Ontario is proving to be targeting. And they're targeting with those that committed kidnapping. And those kidnappers are still being documented. You're going to prison and you're not getting out. You stole my money, you stole my property. It is your fault that I'm in this economic status now, and you're still gang stalking further into murder. You're going to federal prison and you're not getting out. You're not getting out. And there's no negotiation out of that. You can't buy me. You're going to prison and you're not getting out. The entity is engaging in what is criminal conduct as a government body, as an entity, a group, a large, expansive group. That's an entity, okay? They're engaging in that together. They stole from me together. They engaged in sexual violence against me together. They profited off of my demise together. They defamed my character together. Guess what? They committed kidnapping together. Guess what? They're still gang stalking me together. You're going to prison for what your co-defendants are still engaging in, what you are engaging in. Tracy Banks, wherever this psychopath is hiding, whatever it is that she's doing, she's gang stalking me while doing it. The entity is not just the one that's wearing the Brightview neon jackets right now and stalking in commercial planes from the Ontario International Airport. Those are not the only demons that are gang stalking. It is a statewide pattern of conduct. Demons in Northern California are aware of what it is. I am subject to surveillance, and this is a demon-possessed population. This is opening your mind to the reality of the spiritual realm. And I have let you know about that through the proof of what is tangible evidence of targeting. The fake sun is letting you know that everybody in the state of California is monitoring me and knows who I am and is keeping me under surveillance. And it's beyond the state of California, but based on where I'm at and my evidence and I'm prosecuting, you're getting the implications regarding what California is doing. It's happening in the rest of the country. How is that? Because there's no sun that's ever going to be in Minnesota when it's remaining over me in one street, in one city all day long. This is how you're able to deduce that. But I'm keeping it where I'm at, where the evidence shows. Okay, the entity is engaging in that, and you're going to prison for it. This is the relevance of prosecuting the conspiracy that is impliedly created while they engage in an unspoken pattern of conduct. Nobody had a meeting. All right, they didn't get up this morning and have a meeting. Okay, I'm going to walk by with my 3 kids at the same time that you're flying over the elderly people's apartments at 280. We're going to do it at this. No, these are demons that are acting in sync. This is a spiritual realm, and you're able to prosecute it based on a pattern of conduct, what they are manifestly doing that you are witnessing, proving it through tangible evidence. The ongoing plan and purpose, the common scheme that they commit over and over and over again in a very specific environment. Not only what they do as a common scheme, but they're doing it in a specific environment. And it's relevant to surveillance. And so this is where you have, 2 days now covering up the fake sun in the morning, when you've already seen the City of Ontario gang stalking on this C Street right here at Euclid from sunrise until sunset. That's how I got more and more defendants that are going to prison of the Ontario Police Department. Under the fake sun setting right here at this Ontario Town Square. Covering up the fake sun will never remove that evidence. That's like stating, oh, well, I murdered somebody on the 23rd, and I'm routinely a serial killer. I was murdering on the 23rd, and then on the 24th, and then on the 25th, and then on the 26th. But on the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, I didn't murder anybody. So it's like a clean slate. Those other murders, they don't count. Okay, we're just starting over. It didn't happen. Okay, because I didn't commit any murders on the 27th or the 28th and the 29th. So it's like it didn't happen. Nobody remembers it. It's off the record. That's the delusional demon-possessed entity that is mentally incompetent. They are actually special needs. Their conduct of stalking with impossible light is letting you know that. It wants to present as sane, as normal, as healthy. That is the malice of the demon-possessed that are in a position to commit egregious acts of violence against the public. They're proving that to you by gang stalking. All right? It's public corruption. And it is literally, again, that spirit, I'm showing you how, and I'm going to use these terms on purpose, I'm showing you how retarded this spirit is. It's very retarded. It's totally ill-equipped, okay, and unprepared. They have no sense of being able to reason what is reconciling their demonic behavior, which is designed to psychologically torture and harass, and they derive pleasure out of targeting somebody. But then the high calling regarding analyzing that and engaging in legal and logical reasoning. The demon-possessed, it's a retarded spirit over all of them, and they're not capable of engaging that. That's too high of an order. Understand that. You're dealing with lower spiritual beings who are using people that have names and businesses and addresses, and they have also obligations under the law. They also have that they are bound by the law, and you can prosecute those demons with that retarded spirit on them. And you know what's wrong with them. You know that they're mentally ill by their pattern of conduct. You know that they're engaged in sexual violence by their pattern of conduct. You know that they're malicious, maniacal psychopaths who never expected that you would be able to identify them or let alone prove what they're doing. This retarded spirit is engaging in front of everybody, including using some of the largest companies in the world, using their commercial planes to stalk one person. This is terrorism in the United States. I mean, you're talking about openly engaging in it. That's what they're doing right now. They are openly letting you know they hate this country. You should not be surprised when you are seeing acts of violence committed against large groups of people. You were warned. The P.O.C. is a warning. These are psychopaths that are engaging in what was supposed to remain an unspoken secret system that's long existed. You're talking about what is the ticking time bombs who are the demon-possessed with this retarded spirit on them. The retarded spirit that can't think logically. They don't engage in any reasoning. They just engage in violence. That's it. All they know how to do is monitor. While you're sitting up legally analyzing, and all they're doing, they're still stalking with noise. They're still stalking with light. They're still stalking in the ways in which I'm showing you. The Alan D. WAPNER is responsible for this gang stalking, and they're just engaging over and over and over and over and over again. That's the retarded spirit. That is a threat to your safety because they're engaged in what is ongoing irrational behavior. That retarded spirit on them is demonic, and it has an appetite to do harm. It has an appetite to hurt as many people as possible. This is the threat regarding national security. It is relevant and it is imperative to target the domestic terrorists who are engaged in what is federal group stalking and monitoring gang stalking. That's not an exaggeration. Their inability to appreciate what is happening to them is a threat to the public. Okay? I'm just letting you know that's where that's going logically. That's where that goes. That's how you follow that. Their behavior, and you're analyzing it, the information that they have. Remember, they're keeping me under surveillance. They're keeping that evidence under surveillance. This is a retarded spirit. That retarded spirit has an appetite for murder and pedophilia, has an appetite for sexual violence, has an appetite for violating your privacy. They want to be in that place where they don't have any business being there. That's where that retarded spirit wants to be. It's a pervert. And it's also a stalker, a maniacal one, using things like commercial planes to stalk me, and I capture it. And I've been capturing it for years. All right? The entity is engaging in this, and it's speaking to what is a threat to the public. So you have maniacal psychopaths. You have this retarded spirit. They should be limited from being able to get licenses to fly planes, being in law enforcement, even being in the position of government, period. When you have a record of, for example, living in the state of California that's been exposed, these are the type of parameters that you can provide with regard to what is not a violation. That's not, you don't have any unconstitutional violation when the entity is engaging in surveillance and terrorism. You're talking about making sure that the occupants of the state of California are marked. And I don't have to encounter the demons in Modesto, California in order to have them marked regarding terrorism that's underway in the state of California, because you pose a threat in other countries. And that is speaking to what is an inability to just get a license to be a pilot, to just join law enforcement if you get some, wild hair that makes you feel like I just want to go into no, they shouldn't be able to just do that. And it shouldn't be so easy to get in law enforcement. There should definitely be an educational standard, because these demons can't even spell Constitution. You can tell their position regarding the Constitution is totally irrelevant. Okay, totally irrelevant. And there should be an education standard regarding law enforcement. Okay, the entities engaging in, and that's not going to be an outright cure, but it's definitely relevant in a lot of sociopaths, a lot of psychopaths. They won't even get past the door because of that education standard. It's just another method of a filter. Okay, and not only that, you're talking about what is your knowledge now about the psychopath that wants to present as healthy, wants to present as well. Understanding the demon possessed that want to be in those positions as well. The demon possessed want to be the president of the United States. The demon possessed want to be the mayor in the city. They want to be the chief of police, so they can head off this terrorism. That's where they want to be. All right, to facilitate and make sure that it's grandfathered in, that it remains in place. Your ability to recognize this pattern of conduct that I've shown you of the demon possessed is your ability to psychologically read those that are a threat and have no business in law enforcement. Okay, that's insight that you have regarding the behavioral pattern, regarding the malice of those sick personalities that want to be in those positions to harm people. That's really why they want to be there. All right, and it is understanding what I got to before. All right, and I'm going to digress here, but what I got to before, Satan is very deceptive regarding illusions. Okay, you're talking about what looks beautiful on paper, what presents very well in person, what might be the most charismatic, most eloquent sounding, very impressive individual. That is, again, relevant to the illusion presented by Satan. But I just want to be clear. When you are aware of it, and you're no longer deceived by it, you're no longer ignorant about the existence of the illusion, you are able to pierce through the veil, and Satan won't be so easily capable of impressing you with superficial things. Okay? In other words, you know that the absence of a criminal record doesn't mean that you're not a maniacal psychopath, that you're not a pedophile, that you're not a serial killer, i.e. gang stalking in California. All right? That's not enough to get you a job. In this area, in this department, in law enforcement, in the government, to be a pilot, it's not enough. Okay? The entity is engaging in that, and the entity is doing so as a corrupt government body. You're looking at psychopaths. I'm sure they have a clean criminal record, a clean background, while they're engaged in psychological torture, stalking, and commercial planes. That's exactly what I mean with regard to understanding and studying it and applying that knowledge. Those that are in positions that are providing a necessary filter to keep this retarded spirit from being able to harm more people, from also identifying it and putting it away where it belongs. Okay, it's currently 8:01 a.m. and that video will be uploaded. The entity is engaged in stalking with light. So understand, at nightfall, the entity is stalking with light in the engineered environment. And today, when you're looking at the fake sun that's covered up, you already know the pattern of conduct. I've shown you the entity is always keeping the fake sun over me, even while the clouds are covering up that fake sun. You are still looking at the entity, the pattern of the fake sun documentation is just showing you who is the target. That is me. It's showing you who is targeting me. That's the entity, everybody around. And the entity is engaging in the documentation of the fake sun also lets you know that they are the objective is to stalk with methods of light while they're all stalking all around me. Okay, that's what they're doing using their vehicles. That's what they're doing on the signage. That's what they're doing with regard to the methods of aerial surveillance as well. They're engaging in the same conduct. That's what the relevance of the fake sun documentation is. And it's also letting you know that they're demons, because there's that supernatural feature of the pattern of conduct. Absolute demons that are all in a cartoon environment showing you their mental illness that's not hidden. They're all under the fake sun. They're psychopaths. All right, they're sex offenders. They're all under the fake sun. They're all obsessed with the idea of murdering that person that they're gang stalking maliciously. They're all under the fake sun. All right, this is the P.O.C. It's currently 8:03 a.m. This is what the entity is doing at Chevron last night. Flying crooked in the sky, making a straight U-turn. There's no airport you're not taking off from behind the 280 Northland Apartments. And that's also amplified plane activity. That's clearly stalking. Walking around here in front of me while the entity is engaging what is stalking using planes is the concerted conduct of gang stalking. Maintaining traffic, they're stopping at the traffic light, that's stalking in the path with light. They're doing so while they're patrolling on Euclid Avenue. And that demon literally came from behind the 280 North Limit Apartments, engaged in flight, angled flight up in the sky and making a straight U-turn. That's what they're doing when they're flying west over there. They're targeting at the Ontario Diamonds, and that's the same vehicle engaging that's exposing that entire apartment complex to being federally rated for engaging in terrorism where they live. And that's the status of the entire city of Ontario. You're subject to being raided because you don't live in any private property. You're targeting with the government. That's what they're doing at every traffic light, at every stop sign. They're stalking in the path. This is surveillance. And how do you know? Because during the day, the fake sun's right here over my head, where they're all engaging what is stalking me together. They're all engaging what is obsessing over me together. That's why you're flying miles away, repeating it over and over again. This is not published on the Ontario International website. Okay? That's P.O.C. And remember, they're not flying in this direction to go over by 415 North Euclid Avenue when I'm over there, when they're flying over the Starbucks when I'm over there. This is stalking. And that's amplified audible activity. It's demonic. And it's also demonic while you're looking at murderers that are mentally ill that are stalking in planes. And Alan D. WAPNER is going to be removed from office. And this is terrorism that's underway in the United States. You are conspicuously stalking while you're doing so. The entity does the same thing, sounding sirens, while demons are crossing path. They're doing so in engineer light. This is relevant to criminal surveillance on devices, on the internet, and monitoring your person. This is why you have engineer light, for example, in my hotel room. Doing so with minor children and speaking to terrorists that are unfit and that are a threat to children. They also have sex with children while they're gang stalking with them. With the entity, that psychopathic behavior is associated with this terrorist that's using minor children to engage in criminal conduct. You don't have to say a word. They're engaging in activity creation. That ongoing concerted conduct is what is coexisting. That vehicle is engaged in the same thing when the entity is stalking by planes. So the entity engaged in the same conduct over and over again because the entity is acting with the population, an entire population. This is the city of Ontario. The Ontario City Hall is vulnerable to a federal raid for terrorism. So is the Ontario Police Department, the Ontario Fire Department, literally this property, because there is no such thing as private property where the government's engaging in terrorism like I'm showing you, the demonic pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring, i.e. gang stalking, which they're doing with the people of the state, everywhere that they live, everywhere that they're traveling, and everywhere that they are working. The entities engaging in that P.O.C. and doing so, conspicuously stalking, is the ongoing unlawful threat posed to an American citizen that's being targeted by the government in concert with a population. Okay, it is currently 7:40 a.m. This is criminal conduct by the Ontario International Airport that is not published on the website, and hovering over this apartment building, and then engaging in what is not only that, but then they're engaging in this U-turn flying back over again. The entities engaged in what is clear, just stalking. Okay, that's what they were doing last night over while I'm north of this location, targeting way over there, flying over there where I'm at, where the entity is engaged in what is monitoring the evidence, exposing how they are terrorists and enemies of the United States, and so are the people of the state. This is P.O.C. Go ahead and get another one. This is the entity that's engaging what is stalking, that's audible activity, crossing a path, and they're doing so while an entity is maintaining presence. That's what this is right here on Euclid Avenue. And the red light is in concert. The state controls that while the entity is stalking by plane. The entity does that by walking right by you. This is demonic pacing. Bright views of hiring immigrants, engaging in gang stalking. That's what the business engaging in the pattern of conduct. And so are the people of the state in every single last one of their vehicles. That's relevant to the elements of monitoring. And that's the government acting with the government. That's what they are. They're not private citizens. This is the ongoing concerted P.O.C. And Alan D. WAPNER is engaged in domestic terrorism. So is the entire airport authority. They are engaged in terrorism in the United States. And this is criminal conduct that Gavin Newsom shares in. He's a criminal. He's actually an enemy of the United States who wants to be in the position of the presidency, which he is mentally unfit to hold, while this corrupt system that is speaking to what is domestic terrorism and those that actually hate what the flag represents, they hate what the Constitution represents, as I am upholding it and enforcing it, and the entity is in the face of that, engaging what is defying it, and engaging in what is harassment and hostility. Why? Because I'm enforcing constitutional rights. Those are enemies of the United States, and they're serial killers. They engage in psychological torture like this before they commit murder. This is P.O.C. It's currently 7:42 a.m. I've already documented the entity maintaining the fake sun. What you're seeing right now, these vehicles are methods of light activity. They are stalking in the path, one after another crossing path. That's all they're doing, and they're stalking. You're talking about what is a code of conduct that they're engaging in an entirely engineered environment. I've already shown you the fake sun rising at the Ontario Town Square, and I've showed you the fake sun setting at the Ontario Town Square, 224 North Euclid Avenue, where there's no planes that are flying over the 280 North Limit Apartments, rising in elevation and making a U-turn, rising in elevation and taking off over the Ontario Town Square. None of that. And it's also relevant that not only is that not happening when you're taking off from the airport at 2500 Airport Drive, you're also not engaging in that. It's also suspect when they're doing it under the fake sun that rises and sets right here at this venue. And that's criminal activity that exposes Paul Leon to a raid. That's criminal activity that exposes Alan D. WAPNER to a raid. That's criminal activity that exposes Mike LORENZ and Michael GERKEN to a raid by the federal government. They're engaged in terrorism, and they are engaged in leading terrorism, facilitating it amongst an entire population, and doing so in furtherance of murder. And they do so with impunity. They do so with impunity. Okay? It is currently 7:43 a.m. This is P.O.C. (8:08 a.m.) Stalking by commercial plane hovering over me, and doing so while I am documenting on the phone. So I'm putting together my podcast. That is the elements of monitoring. While the people of the state are stalking at B Street and Euclid at a red light, they're all stalking in the path, and when the light turns green, that's light activity, and each demon crossing path together. This is including the Ontario Montclair School District, sex offenders having access to children, on the roads and the highways, gang stalking, engaging in terrorism while also working amongst children. And there is no surprise regarding pedophiles that are engaging in the pattern of conduct while they're having regular access to children. Just want to be clear. This is P.O.C. It's currently 8:09 a.m. That's federal stalking. All right, not license plate, but I want to document something to pay attention to. And this is relevant to the entity that is engaged in criminal monitoring and is doing so with the intent to obstruct justice while acting in furtherance of accomplishing murder as a mentally ill population of stalkers, demons in particular, who are engaging in the pattern of conduct. The entity, the city of Ontario, that is engaged in criminal monitoring in furtherance of murder and psychological torture have, and it's relevant because of the entity that's monitoring and is monitoring on the Ontario Wi-Fi while I use that Wi-Fi network to publish evidence about it itself. While the entity is changing its availability of access to Wi-Fi with an intent to obstruct justice, it's directly relevant to what I use the Wi-Fi network for, which is to expose the very criminal conduct that the city of Ontario is doing at the Ontario Town Square, which is stalking me in furtherance of murdering me, and then also limiting access from what is 7 a.m. The entity I'm showing 9 a.m., the entity is making the Wi-Fi available, doing so while they're simultaneously engaged in criminal conduct. That's the entity that's engaged in a pattern of criminal acts of obstruction of justice regarding who are serial killers and who are engaged in what is a psychopathic means of stalking someone in order to torture them, and also incentivizing and engaging in that with the population, the people of the state. The entity that's engaging what is changing the access to the Wi-Fi where you're being documented and where you're engaged in criminal conduct via that Wi-Fi, that's a criminal act of obstruction of justice, and it's not a coincidence. And be mindful, the city of Ontario is gang stalking me where they are also cutting off Wi-Fi access. This is, again, the sex offender obsessed with my vagina while also being married, okay? This is, again, the illusion of the demon possessed that they present to you. Being in a position of mayor as though you are some sane, law-abiding citizen. Being in a position of a pastor when you are a demon-possessed psychopath, engaged in a lifestyle of criminal activity. Not knowing Christ at all, okay? Which is known through your fruits, your criminal conduct in office, and your criminal activity and your satanic conduct as a fake pastor. I'm referencing Paul Leon, who was in relevant position while the entity is both gang stalking me at this venue and also limiting access to Wi-Fi. That's directly relevant to the unlawful threat that Paul Leon poses to my life. While the city of Ontario, the entire government, is targeting me in this city and routinely engaging in what is kidnapping. Paul Leon is not remaining in office. All I'm doing is continuously connecting all those dots for you. All I'm doing is reporting the information. This is P.O.C. It's 8:14 a.m. in Paul Leon's office. The City Hall, totally vulnerable to a raid, to a federal raid. This is P.O.C. (8:44 a.m.) Wells Fargo at 240 North Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. The entity is surrounding with methods of peculiarized light while the city of Ontario is stalking with planes with the people of the state. 6VOF 829 is monitoring with the Ontario International Airport. So is Brightview.
That's audible activity he's pacing all around with the means of audible activity. And the moment that I document this terrorist, Wells Fargo, the moment that I document this terrorist, license 6VOF829, is the moment that the terrorists of the Ontario National Airport engage in stalking, where they were already lurking in the path, and then engage in what is crossing path using a plane. That's a psychopath stalking using commercial planes, which is necessitating the removal of this terrorist, Alan D. Wapner, and every other terrorist that is making money on the board of the board of the airport authority. They're all engaged in domestic terrorism. License 6XCP114, and I'm going to go ahead and document those names for you as well. License 8VXF855. And sitting in the vehicle engaged in surveillance, HY876, handicap. License 6YFS497. They're also mentally handicapped. They're engaged in the psychopathic pattern of conduct of stalking with light. That's a special needs. That's a demon-possessed person. 88692B3. These are demons, and the establishment, Wells Fargo, is engaged in domestic terrorism. They are stalking me. That business is stalking. That's how you're going to be prosecuted for terrorism in the U.S., where the entity is stalking with an environment. Your establishment is stalking me while that fake son follows me to where you are located as a malicious actor that is engaging in that satanic means of terrorizing someone, and you're going to be prosecuted for that level of malice. And as I document this terrorist, I want to be clear, the enemy of the United States, this company, Wells Fargo, that's monitoring and terrorizing American citizens with the government, and the government is engaged in more criminal conduct that is stalking in real time with the Ontario International Airport at the moment that I document that terrorist, Wells Fargo. Okay? A bunch of demons are lined up on Euclid Avenue, the city of Ontario, which are filled with the demon-possessed. License 8EJK997, 9CNY504, 5RMJ015, 27272D4, 7RAA206, 6BNR143. That's the significance of the demon-possessed that are maintaining massive light activity in the Meridian, the city of Ontario, that's gang stalking. License 9EEJ107. And those are, again, I want to be clear, millions of people that are monitoring my vagina inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, where this fake son remains right here on this street, with the sex offenders that are Paul Leon, the sex offenders that are municipal employees that are monitoring my vagina. Okay? And they're doing so while they're monitoring right now, creating light activity, which is proven what they're doing when they're doing, and the fake son is over me, and you're looking at them driving around as I document the city of Ontario. They're doing so now while the fake sun is covered up, and they're maintaining light activity for the criminal conduct of this terrorist right here, a sex offender, license plate 9DCC830, engaging in surveillance with the government. Okay, that's P.O.C. Again, another plane at 8:47 a.m. City of Ontario. We want to hear that. Brightview is tracking my steps. Brightview is hiring immigrants, gang stalking. Brightview is acting systematically, monitoring with the city of Ontario. P.O.C. All right, Brightview is engaged in relevant positioning. Brightview is engaged in federal stalking under Title 18. Brightview is also engaged in what is hiring immigrants to engage in terrorism while making money, as engaging in what is landscaping the malicious guise of federal group stalking and monitoring. They're doing so while the demons of the city of Ontario are maintaining light activity. And one demon after another is now they'll be seen on traffic cameras as well. A whole boulevard of Euclid Avenue, maintaining massive light activity while the plane activity is underway, while the demon-possessed are pacing all around. And Brightview is a corrupt government actor, not a private party, not a private company, having no protection under federal law. And that is, again, another business that is headquartered in Pennsylvania, by the way, and they are subject to what is a raid. Okay? They're engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, and its employees subject to deportation for not only any sort of unlawful presence in the country while engaging in terrorism, it's also unlawful presence in the country when you're a terrorist and you have your papers. Guess what? You're still going to be deported, because terrorism is un-American. You're not welcome in this country. And Brightview is engaged in that un-American system, and they are systematically doing that. Systematically, Brightview is engaged in domestic terrorism. It is currently 8:48 a.m. P.O.C. Brightview is indeed engaged in, hiring immigrants to engage in landscaping, stalking with the government, engaging in terrorism with the government. That's crossing a path, light activity, and ongoing audible activity. They're monitoring with communication devices. This is stalking with light in the same way that you see those terrorists, those enemies of the United States who are going to be dealt with, like the domestic enemies they are to this country, terrorizing American citizens who expose them as such, and engaging in what is a routine, documented criminal maintenance of the pattern of kidnapping me while they're stalking. And they're demons doing so. At this Ontario Town Square,
where the fake sun is documented rising and setting over this address over me. That's where the entity is covering up the fake sun. Is no deviation. The entity is doing so while I am currently uploading right now onto the Google Drive, where Brightview is monitoring on the internet. They're engaging in the elements of monitoring. The people that state are monitoring with Brightview. Brightview's third-party gang stalking employees are monitoring on the venue of the internet with the government that is engaged in stalking by commercial planes, where there's no arrivals or departures over 224 North Euclid Avenue, and where there is nothing other than gang stalking by the Ontario police, who are stalking in the specific environment with the people of the state. Public corruption. And again, C. Torres L. Martinez, B. Hook Nathan Morgan, C. Hazelwood Owens, Alex Escobar A. Casada, that homosexual sex offender monitoring my vagina at the OVITT Family Community Library under the 12:13 p.m. fake sun, where you see those demons of that Ontario police stalking on a daily basis, nightly basis under a fake sun. Those are the demons that are mentally deranged. They're being disbanded, and you're going to witness them being targeted by the federal government. The Ontario Police Department at 2500 South Archibald Avenue with the fake sun over me at that venue, both in the morning and in the evening. They're fully exposed to a raid by the federal government, while they're engaging in domestic terrorism with the level of impunity that speaks to the threat that they are to this country. They are going to be disbanded, and each kidnapper is going to prison. It is currently 9:36 a.m. The entity is gang stalking, doing so at the same specific environment, and the same elements of monitoring are underway even when the demon-possessed monitor the evidence and then engage in what is covering up the fake sun. All right, it's P.O.C. It's 9:36 a.m. License 8N. Oh, I can't really see that. These demons that are stalking with the entity that you hear engaging in terrorism, utilizing a helicopter to do so. License 8KIB352. These are the terrorists, the serial killers, the sex offenders engaging in surveillance and furtherance of murder committed as a government program. 8BKU186. 9JON181, 65785Y3. These are stalkers that are engaging in stalking while they're being documented. 6LPP399. And remember, the co-conspirators, the kidnappers of the Ontario police, are engaging in kidnapping with this entity. They're going to prison. License 8KFW049 and Wells Fargo at 240 North Euclid Avenue is engaging in gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department. 6UXH784, 7MBW447. 8NMD267. Wells Fargo is criminally engaged in the pattern of conduct, and Wells Fargo is facilitating it through its corrupt business practices, engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring, and providing a crime scene for the people of the state to engage in presence in the path while this malicious pattern of conduct, public corruption, is underway by Wells Fargo as well. 9TGC425, 9JPW471. License plate 6VOE301. They're all sitting around stalking and monitoring me together while the entity engages in terrorism, documented and put all over the internet regarding the public investigation of the government that is engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture, in concert with the psychopaths who are the people of the state, gang stalking as a demon-possessed population together. 7EOU689, DBGRAFX. License 8K96591. And it's the video will be added to the the video you just listened to, because I'm adding it to the podcast. This is documenting all the terrorists that are sitting around stalking. The police fly over. They're engaging in the elements of monitoring with them. A bunch of psychopaths sitting around in their cars, all monitoring on their phones, all together listening to me document them ceaselessly. They're all sex offenders as well, monitoring my vagina in that same corporate manner as well. And that's what stalking in an Ontario Police Department helicopter, monitoring my vagina, stalking, surveillance, demonic activity. And it's being removed altogether as a corrupt terrorist organization. And they're not engaged in law enforcement, and they're also enemies of the United States. And so you are enthusiastically engaged in what is celebrating the demise of the Ontario police. They are enemies of the United States. License 6TUL769, and they under no circumstances seek to hide or conceal that, which is good. Okay, you want to identify the enemy and root it out. Okay, the enemy is not even trying to disguise itself, and that enemy is going to be disbanded and removed. It is currently 9:47 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, notes. Wells Fargo, the Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments, the 280 North Lemon Apartments, City Center Senior Center, City Center Senior Apartments at 280 North Lemon. The Metro 102 Apartments, the Ontario Town Square, the Ontario Fire Department, the Ontario City Hall, The OVITT Family Community Library, this is where the entity is concentrating the system of gang stalking. This is where the entity is engaging in those elements of monitoring. This is where they're engaged. All of those establishments, Wells Fargo, all of them are engaging in that pattern of conduct. Across on the opposite side of Euclid Avenue is the Herradura de Oro. The businesses that are aligned along Euclid Avenue, just with regard to where I'm physically located. The radius regarding relevant positioning is far beyond where I'm located at the Ontario Town Square. The pattern of conduct is criminal conduct by the entire state of California. It is not limited to the zip code of 91762 in Ontario. I am documenting with regard to relevant positioning being my path because you're prosecuting for the experience of the one who is being terrorized, looking at the stalker, looking at the terrorist that's threatening conspicuously while stalking in your face and presupposing you can do nothing about it. And you're not going to do anything about it because even if you do anything about it, I'm going to do it more, and you're going to be killed, you're going to be kidnapped, you're going to be falsely depicted as the one in the wrong. That's the malice behind gang stalking with the police, with the fire department, with ambulances like American Medical Response, with the people of the state as a population, gang members who group up together against the target individual, who do so while they're engaging in what is on the surface supposed to appear as though they're minding their business, like landscaping at the venue where they're engaged in the monitoring elements with the government that engages in what is that conduct as the City of Ontario is demonstrating. That's all happening under the fake sun, which you already know. Where the fake sun is rising and setting, you are getting beyond the mask of a bunch of psychopaths that have conspired to murder someone and try to make that person look like there's something wrong with them while they do that. That's why you're prosecuting for the conspicuous act of stalking somebody, gang stalking them. And that's the entity that has an appetite to watch you suffer while they target you. Those are enemies of the United States, and they're flying Ontario and police department helicopters. They're engaged in stalking and county-issued police vehicles. They're sitting up and calling themselves a fire department in relevant position. That's just speaking to where I'm physically located in proximity to me. The entire city of Ontario is engaged in monitoring, knows what I'm saying, is keeping me under surveillance on communication devices. They're engaging in tag teaming and maintaining surveillance on Euclid Avenue. All right, license 9KPD 794. Wherever it is that they're ultimately going to, they're making sure that they pass by stalking me and doing so as a population of demons committed to surveillance. And they're all listening at the same time, listening to me document. Okay, this is the entity that's engaged in that, and it is relevant that the mayor, that the fire department, and that the police department that's stalking in vehicles and in helicopter are engaging in that criminal conduct. You're prosecuting the government acting directly, all the ways in which the government is conspicuously threatening in your face. Basically, a terrorist that's telling an American citizen, I'm going to murder you, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. Even while you document me, there is nothing you're going to do about it. Even while you are literally the voice and the authority of the federal government, there's nothing that you're going to do about it. That's exactly what's going to require the response as I.I.S. federal legislation has mandated. And that's exactly how you handle that delusional, retarded spirit. Okay, that is unhinged and that is engaged in what is lawlessness and engaging in unspeakable acts of violating human beings who are American citizens protected under state and federal constitutions in the United States. Okay, and it's operating over a corrupt business. Brightview, license plate 11423C4, license plate. Gang stalking immigrant, license 6HGA723. If that's an immigrant, you're being deported. The entity's engaging in that, and I also want to be clear with regard to terrorism and targeting terrorists. It's not going to be based on how many years. Well, you've been an immigrant, and so you've been here for over 25 years, so now you're considered what is an American citizen and not an immigrant anymore. Understand that the line is terrorism. And all of those rules, all of those benefits are out the window. You have forfeited it when you've engaged in what is un-American conduct, your outward demonstration, the quintessence of demonstrating that you are unworthy of being in this country. And you forfeit that. You're the one that's telling the federal government I'm a threat and get me out of here, because that's exactly what's going to happen. All right, it's currently 9:52 a.m. And that's the entity that's gang stalking. I want to document Brightview. Brightview is gang stalking just like HD Supply. Here they come. Remember, HD Supply is gang stalking under the fake sun at Woodside Senior Apartments. And where they're delivering products to Avanath Capital Management, right where the fake sun is in front of Tracy Banks' apartment. HD Supply is a malicious enemy of the United States engaged in criminal monitoring like every other business. License 71985W3, and the entity is engaged in the same conduct that you already saw, stalking by planes and helicopters, while HD Supply is a commercial means of the same pattern of conduct, criminal presence. Your business is illegitimate while you're engaging in any form of presence, including making money while making a delivery, or whatever they're doing under the fake sun and an engineer light while you're stalking with light, facilitating, enabling a government to murder someone that you're sharing in, that you're keeping them under surveillance, and demons doing so in ways in which I'm exposing it to you because they thought that you would never know. Those are serial killers. All right, HD Supply, again, that license plate, 71985W3, 5DLB178. All they're doing is blocking, and by blocking I mean it's like when you're playing basketball and you have the ball, okay? I am the player with the ball. I'm the focus. Okay, everybody's stalking me and everybody's trying to block my path. Gang stalking. That's how they're maintaining, and they're doing so in the engineer light. It doesn't matter if they're in the path, if it's all natural, if this is all a natural environment. If that's the sun and it's not here at the end of the day, everybody's minding their business. I'm not the focal point. But that's the illusion. 8NNP552 is engaged in what is crossing path. I am the focal point. That is a sex offender, a homosexual one who is stalking another woman and is engaged in criminal monitoring in furtherance of murdering the woman that she is stalking, in concert with a whole population of psychopaths and violent sex offenders, serial killers together, who are sharing in torturing one person, sharing in stalking one person, sharing in violating the privacy of one person, sharing in sexually violating one person before they are together also shedding blood of that person. License 88019W3. These are murderers. These are serial killers. These are psychopaths. None of that is exaggeration. And the mayor and the fire chief and the police chief and the president of the airport authority, they're engaged in this criminal pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. It's 9:54 a.m. Okay, I just want to document HD Supply, the City of Ontario, stalking around the perimeter with light activity. HD Supply, what's the form for the peculiarized light P.O.C.? That they're making a delivery, so they have their hazard lights on. The City of Ontario is always engaging in this pattern of conduct. There are demons, and when you're looking at them, 8CBA 689 is pacing, driving around the C Street turn circle. These are demons who are concerned. Let me tell you what their concern is, even while they're being documented for terrorism, which the government and a population is going to experience a prosecution for. They're focusing on the video that's being uploaded to the X, as opposed to being identified by the world as engaging in terrorism in the United States, which is going to have reverberating repercussions in their individual lives and collectively as a state, as a community. The entity is more focused on what's being uploaded to X, and that is the video of Ontario police stalking, as I am capturing that pattern of conduct and doing so while they are still stalking with light. That's what the City of Ontario is engaging in. That's what HD Supply is engaging in, and that's the focal point. The moment where HD Supply turns from B Street onto Lemon, they're doing so while plane activity is sounding. City of Ontario is stalking in the path, meaning they are parked along Lemon in front of the OVITT Family Community Library, where I'm showing you the fake sun at 7:39 in the morning, and I'm showing you the fake sun at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm showing you the fake sun at 12:13 p.m. where that lesbian, a casada, who's a violent sex offender, is monitoring my vagina, while that fake sun remains over the library where a bunch of homosexuals are stalking me in the bathroom. And they're stalking me with sex offenders like the City of Ontario, who engage in this conduct when they all know together my panties are down, and they're engaged in this demonic conduct of keeping an indisposed woman in a private space under surveillance. Okay, and that is down to the detail of sitting outside of the bathroom, walking back and forth in front of the bathroom, outside of the bathroom, being in alignment in the male's restroom, being in alignment inside of the staff restroom, while the entity is amplifying noise inside of the women's restroom and stalking by planes and helicopters over that restroom. Those are the sex offenders that are sounding helicopter activity while I break that down for you. They're going to federal prison for kidnapping. License 93853T1. Okay, that's P.O.C. And that's, again, the entity that's stalking by helicopter. That is indeed the entity that is stalking me by helicopter, that's flying over my head by plane, as I break down their sexual violence committed by companies like HD Supply, committed by municipalities like City of Ontario, committed by companies, sex offenders like Brightview, committed by the immigrant population sharing in terrorism with the United States government, like the corrupt City of Ontario, the corrupt state of California, the corrupt official Gavin Newsom engages in with immigrants. Okay, like the entity that is gang stalking throughout the cities and counties, as I've shown in the body of evidence. Okay, there's no coincidence while I break down their sexual violence, their obsession with my vagina, and this is the entity that's doing so inside of that library. Okay, Surrounding with light activity, doing so, driving around the turn circle, stalking in the path with the method of peculiarized light, pacing in and out. Those aren't demons relieving themselves, those are sex offenders. And by the way, as a document, I just want to be clear, they're psychopaths. As you document them engaging in stalking in the bathroom, more homosexuals walk in and out of the bathroom. Because they, again, psychopaths divide. I'm going to get locked up. I'm going to go to federal prison, and I'm going to show you, Erica, because I'm going to go to federal prison. That's literally the conclusion of what they engage in. 1647608, that's City of Ontario gang stalking in a county-issued vehicle. The entities engaging in this conduct, and literally that's the behavior of psychopaths who are very much delusional, and that's, again, a national security threat because this is a retarded spirit on a demon-possessed population that's not capable of reasoning. They act totally irrational. They've been engaged in what is years of playing in demonic spirits. They are psychopaths, and they're also violent sex offenders, all right? They're sexually attracted to children. They're engaged in egregious criminal activity, doing so in the highest malicious manner as a whole population. And they do so with a straight face that's not presenting as healthy and non-threatening or normal. It's malice, okay? And the demon-possessed are possessed by a spirit that is invisible. And that invisible spirit is what is manifesting in their behavior, okay? And that's all relevant to what's going on in bathrooms where sex offenders, predators that don't want to be identified as such, using what is issued by the state, the government, the city, to engage in sexual violence in private spaces like in bathrooms. And psychopaths that are engaging in that, they engage in more of it as I document. Indeed, as I document homosexuals that are engaged in stalking in a bathroom, more and more of those homosexuals enter in and out of the bathroom. Like I documented yesterday while I was sitting outside, as I sat outside, the more pictures that I took, more demons went in and out of that bathroom. They're all doing so while they're going inside of the OVITT Family Community Library having multiple shadows. Okay, that's the pattern of conduct by a bunch of sex offenders, making sure they run in to get positioned to keep me surrounded while I'm inside of the venue. And this is why the Ontario Police is being disbanded and they're going to federal prison for kidnapping with the OVITT Family Community Library, a family and community of demons. This is P.O.C. It's 10 a.m. at 215 East C Street.
Concentration, social, and communication skills. Starting now in the storytime room.
All right, that's the City of Ontario, the OVITT Family Community Library. That's the sex offender monitoring my vagina in the bathroom. And they're monitoring on my device right now. While I am looking at evidence, you have psychopaths who are demons and engineer light while they're walking inside of the library, focusing on the posters on the wall. They're doing so next to me while they have multiple shadows on the ground, and while the City of Ontario aids in the monitoring conduct on my device by maintaining an announcement. That's what they've been doing the whole time while I'm uploading the videos onto YouTube. This is psychopathic conduct, and they're also sex offenders that focus on my vagina together when I'm in the bathroom inside of this library. This is the same library that has the fake sun from sunrise until sunset. This is the employees that committed kidnapping with the Ontario Police Department that are stalking me by helicopter while I enter and exit this venue. This is the entity that's stalking by helicopter this morning, and this is the entity that's stalking with light on the roads and the highway, stalking me all night long where I sleep, and engaging in what is nothing other than stalking inside of the venue right now. Mentally deranged psychopaths are engaged in gang stalking, wanting to present outwardly like they're engaged in one thing when they are in substance and in the presence of the whole world that's looking at mental illness that's threatening your safety unbeknownst to you, and no longer capable to hide in plain sight, engaging in the criminal pattern of conduct. That's relevant to the malicious engagement in gang stalking while you're on the job, which is where the OVITT Family Community Library of the City of Ontario is fully exposed to a federal raid. It's 10:32 a.m. This is federal stalking on my communication device while they're keeping the evidence about their criminal conduct, which is terrorism, under surveillance. And that's relevant to everybody who's catching a case and going to prison. Everybody that's as an entity acting with impunity. Everybody that's targeting the malicious manner like the OVITT Family Community Library shows, doing so while they're on the job, while they're looking at books, and while they're holding the hands of kids that they're gang stalking with. It's currently 10:32 a.m. That's malice. This is P.O.C. Okay, Title 18 federal stalking. by the people of the state surrounding the building, and the entities engaging in what is surrounded with light activity with the fake sun over the OVITT Family Community Library at 215 E.C. Street. And these are demons engaging in surveillance. So the entities inside trying to unpublish my podcast, the entities inside stalking with noise, the entities inside pacing around an engineer light, the entities inside maintaining the elements of monitoring, and outside the fake sun is over the entrance where I'm documenting, by the way. The fake sun is here, like I showed you the other day at 7:39 in the morning, and it's 12:38 p.m. You're also mindful that I'm documenting the fake sun at 12:14 p.m. at the Fontana Lewis Library. And I capture another image to show you what is non-movement of that fake sun over the same Fontana Lewis Library at approximately 3:25 p.m. And while I'm on the second floor of the Fontana Lewis Library, I'm showing you the fake sun that's in perfect alignment with where I'm standing in that library after 6 o'clock, actually 6:47 p.m. The picture of the people that you see inside of the library are demons. The picture of the people that you see outside of the library, they're demons. License 9DGN578 is a demon. And so is license 6VDA212. That's a demon. And they're engaged in stalking. All right, the entity is engaging in what is demonic, and they're all sex offenders. This is a sex offense committed by the government. Paul Leon's being removed from office for being a violent sex offender and facilitating sexual violence amongst a population, engaging in what is unprecedented sexual violence by the city of Ontario, the state of California. License 9BJP686, 5WLZ347, they're all demons. 8YJR684, CJU7304, Washington. 8UUE417, 8PPJ907, 46870T1, 1UBR806, 6TTE397, and the sex offenders, the company that's engaging in what is light activity, audible activity, under a fake sun that's not at the same time over the Fontana Lewis Library. These are demons associated with a company name that you can sue civilly and criminally. License, let me show you this stalker, 9VBV081, 9CMR555, 9EAZ955, all under the fake sun. Over 215 E.C. Street, which not in the natural environment is not over 8437 Sierra Avenue. Over my head at the Fontana Lewis Library, where that fake sun never left from being over that venue. This is where you're looking at demons maliciously engaging in public corruption, monitoring a woman's vagina by being outside a relevant position, facilitating monitoring on devices on the internet amongst a population of psychopaths and sex offenders inside of that venue where a fake sun sits over it all day long. And it's the prosecution of the Fontana Police Department, the prosecution of the Ontario Police Department. This is West Coast arborists who are gang stalking with the city of Upland as well. Doing so with the Upland Police Department as well. Doing so pursuant to what is monitoring my vagina. That's the prosecution of that corrupt company. And they hire immigrants. That's, again, prosecuting and deporting immigrants that are engaging in terrorism by employment in the state of California. Again, license plate of West Coast arborists. This is all criminal monitoring. It's all criminal activity by this company. Every single last bit of it. 34900M3. And these are psychopaths that are engaging in corruption that you're not supposed to know about. Okay, everybody can see the fake sun that's over all those demons inside of the Fontana Lewis Library. This is the fake sun that's over all the demons inside and all around me, stalking me. And guess what they all do together as well? They all engage in violating my privacy, concerned with the vagina between my legs. Every single license plate is representing those homosexuals and also those demons that are engaging in what is stalking. As a business engaged in sexual violence, as a municipality engaged in sexual violence, and this old geezer, a sex offender, 8PAF140. And he gets to be a sex offender because Paul Leon facilitates it, because Gavin Newsom facilitates it. Okay, a city full of pedophiles. A city full of kidnappers and serial killers. This is what gang stalking is, and it's mental illness. Unaddressed, undiagnosed, undisclosed. This is P.O.C. I took a picture of everybody inside. You're looking at demons. I take pictures so that you can see and learn the demon possessed are right in front of your face. And they're engaged in criminal activity in plain view. All right, this is malice while the entity is tree trimming and maintaining massive light activity, and doing so under a fake sun that's not simultaneously over the Fontana Lewis Library. All right, that's the entity that's monitoring me. All All right, it is currently licensed 6NMY360, a sex offender monitoring my vagina and conspiring my murder with the city of Ontario. Alan D. Wapner, Mike LORENZ, Michael GERKEN, they're all being removed from office. All the businesses in California are conspiring murder as well while they're gang stalking businesses. They're engaged in psychological torture and sexual violence, unprecedented sexual violence. 74814A4, maintaining light activity. The entity has the fake sun over the same location. I'm at this Ontario Town Square, the OVITT Family Community Library area at 7 in the morning. The fake sun is rising on Euclid Avenue at 6:38 in the morning. Even when you're not remembering what happened at the Fontana Lewis Library, which in any investigation, you're not forgetting what happened 48 hours ago, 24 hours ago. All right, the entity's engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they're doing so while the fake sun is over this venue 6 hours earlier. The sun didn't go anywhere. What is in Florida, okay? This is how you're seeing the sex offenders in plain view, the demon-possessed in plain view. And they are serial killers. They are sitting in office, and Satan is calling himself a mayor. In Fontana, Satan is calling herself a mayor, Aquanetta Warren. This black-faced sex offender, this homosexual woman obsessed with my vagina, keeping it under surveillance at the Fontana Lewis Library. They're a bunch of demons. Demon possession is very real, and it's criminal conduct. It's gang stalking. A whole bunch of homosexual women are stalking in a bathroom and maintaining their mouth is watering with regard to monitoring my vagina the moment I walk in there. Predators walking into and around the venue and going into the men's restroom in the event that I go in the bathroom and take my panties down. They're sex offenders, all of them. P.O.C.
Alrighty, you are informed regarding the condition, regarding the criminal activity, regarding the sexual deviancy, regarding the mental illness of those that surround in the specific environment. You're also aware of the vicarious nature of that conduct on behalf of whose pattern of conduct it belongs to, and that's the corrupt state. Okay? That is, the police department is vicariously stalking you while following into bathrooms, and that's what you're doing. Having no constitutional right whatsoever because of the environment that's pursuant to surveillance. And so this is the ability to be prosecuted at work, at your so-called home, which is nothing other than an easy place for the federal government to find you, to raid you, to prosecute you. All right, the entity is engaged in what is keeping the fake sun, and the entity is inside of the venue stalking with noise. And these demons are doing so while the government is outside maintaining light activity, maintaining the fake sun, and a bunch of demons are pacing all around me inside of this venue, staring at computers, keeping their noses in books, staring, keeping their back to you while they're all stalking you. That's mental illness, okay? In the background, you're hearing the mentally ill that work for the city of Ontario, pacing in and out of the administration door. They use a key card. There's a timestamp. Those demons are opening and closing doors while they're pacing. Those are the demon-possessed that know what you're physically doing also regarding the sex offenders that they are, monitoring your genitalia. They open and close the administration door with simultaneity to my touching my phone screen, to uploading documents, to uploading videos, to changing functions on my device, to moving my legs, to crossing my legs or uncrossing my legs, standing up or sitting down. Those are demons. All right, and they're also proven to be demons while the fake sun sits over me at 8437 Sierra Avenue in Fontana, California. And it's over the entrance, the same entrance where it's present at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I give you a screenshot and I show you that's the same position it's at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I walk out after 12 p.m. and it's in that same position over me after 12 p.m. But at the same time, during that time frame, 11 to 3, the fake sun's sitting over 8437 Sierra Avenue, where Fontana Lewis Library's criminal engagement and targeting me is competing with the demons in Ontario who committed kidnapping. Both venues engage in criminal summoning while they're engaged in monitoring the evidence against them as terrorists conspiring murder who are obsessed with genitalia that they have no legitimate interest in keeping under surveillance. Because that's all you're doing when you're walking and working and speaking and being present in engineer light, which the demons at OVITT Family Community Library all are. Okay, this is the entity that's gang stalking at every level, the entry level, the so-called managers, the so-called supervisors, they're all demons gang stalking. That includes Sean Thrasher. Okay, a violent sex offender keeping my vagina under surveillance and then engaging in criminal summoning. That level of malice equals federal prison. Just want to be clear on that. This is how you're going to engage in what is targeting terrorists that want to commit sexual acts of violence, and they also want to commit acts of terrorism by oppressing American citizens and engaging in criminal conduct against them while you are enforcing your constitutional right. And you're not going to do that in the face of the federal government either. You will be targeted by the federal government, and you'll be put where any American that wants to be an enemy to the United States belongs, which is in
federal prison. And that's very simple. The entities engaging in monitoring, these are psychopaths pacing, stalking with noise, and the entities maintaining surrounding the venue with peculiarized light. Ongoing hardcore monitoring is underway. Okay? The entity is engaging what is stalking in the bathroom. So you're looking at what are pictures of demons. You're looking at pictures of sex offenders. All right, this is P.O.C. It's 12:59 p.m.
All right, predators lurking in the dark, psychopaths stalking with light, engaging in what is terrorism, stalking with planes with the city of Ontario, the demon-possessed population who are the people of the state engaging in terrorism with the government, their license plates, 9 BSU 727, having a field day, just stalking with light while I'm sitting at the Ontario Town Square where you saw the Ontario police stalking by helicopter, ongoing impossible light activity that's never going to occur from anybody on the road. All right, the entities engaging what is stalking with light while they're monitoring what I'm viewing online, while they're engaging with psychopaths thinking that they're threatening you or scaring you. It is psychological torture with regard to the ordinary target individual that I am not. And so I'm prosecuting terrorists and psychopaths in order to diagnose and convict. 8 UTP 988, sitting around engaged in surveillance while stalking with impossible light, monitoring on a communication device, an absolute psychopath, engaging in gang stalking with the city of Ontario. This is another homosexual, a Caucasian stalker sitting around, by the way, stalking a black woman. You're talking about this racist doctrine. She's sitting around stalking me and monitoring my vagina with a bunch of psychopaths that are sitting around monitoring me while lights flying all around in the dark. Okay? These are demons. License 9PCH903. These are the sex offenders monitoring my vagina all day long. 9LLE249. 9CPC. Oh, I can't really see that one. 50655 handicap. A license plate. 7TGZ849. They're all engaged in surveillance. And when you document them, they'll just hop out and go to the Wells Fargo drive-thru, which is ongoing criminal presence, O1LNWLF, and Wells Fargo is engaged in the criminal system as well. They're not getting out of anything. License 9NNG776, 9GTL991, mule card at 200 North Euclid Avenue, is sharing in that ongoing terrorism with the city of Ontario, gang stalking, been monitoring my vagina all day long. License C. Oh, and by the way, it is 8:31 p.m. 8 URW 413. And 8 RKK 502. License plate 9 FNE 288. I'm gonna let them go. Go ahead. License plate 8 VOP 031. 8 DSV 059. 74642V3. All right, these are enemies of the United States. They hate this country. They hate American citizens like myself, exposing their terrorism, exposing their violence against people, innocent people, these serial killers, these pedophiles. All right, these psychopaths stalking people and ruining their lives. LMCC2, that is a Michigan license plate. And these are enemies of the government. You'll look at the entity that engages in more stalking with impossible light, more stalking with planes and helicopters, more psychopathic pacing as a bunch of demons, the more that I document them, the more that they engage in criminal monitoring, like terrorist enemies of the United States, by the way. Okay? This is the entity that hates this country, and they're going to be identified as the enemies of this country that they are. Okay, 7SIJ161. All right, this Caucasian, this old white biddy, clearly she doesn't want to sit at home and watch Golden Girls. She'd rather be out here collecting federal charges, and she's engaged in federal stalking with impunity. 8 UIP 988. Again, I want to make sure I document that. She is stalking with light. She's engaged in surveillance while the rest of the people of the state are pacing up and down Euclid Avenue. And she's doing it with the Ontario Police Department, stalking in helicopter under the fake sun that's set on this street, Euclid Avenue, the same Euclid Avenue where it rises in alignment to me. And it's setting in alignment to me on the same street. While I remind you about what Fontana Lewis Library, the city of Fontana, what the entity in the city east of Ontario engaged in, stalking me. The evidence of it is keeping a fake sun over me, which is not going to be in alignment to me at the Ontario Town Square, okay? Where old, crusty white people are up in the middle of the night stalking me and obsessed with my vagina. And that is representative of the city full of homosexual women who are obsessed with me,
digging in the trash can, looking for my tampons, looking for pads, looking how they can consume my bodily fluids while they're obsessed with me, lurking in the dark, following me around, molesting me with impossible light, stalking with the government that's using millions of dollars to keep me under surveillance. That's what's wrong with that old white biddy, okay? She's mentally sick. And that's the same condition of the demon-possessed that are stalking me all night long, including while I'm sleeping outside. They're going out of their homes to be outside where I'm outside because they're stalking me. That's what's wrong with that old white biddy. Okay, she needs to be restrained. And the entity's going to be prosecuted, and their mental illness is going to be put at the forefront of their prosecution. This is P.O.C. It's currently 8:33 p.m. UCP 812. P.O.C. 8HQA 443. Molesting. 9UOT. Oh, you can't really see that one. 8SKB 773. And a sex offender. All right, wants to go out of their way to touch me. They're stalking at the traffic lights and the stop signs. This isn't traffic. All right, license 8ZKN221. Sex offenders that are engaging in molestation all night long while they're stalking me. The entities that's engaged in a bunch of demonic activities, stalking at traffic lights like serial killers do in California, who are gang stalking. Doing so as psychopaths, molesting you with impossible light while they are keeping you under surveillance. License 7C JH675. License 9TZR456. License 9KCP086. Gang stalking immigrants, deportation. If that applies, 439. I can't really see that one. You can scratch that one. All right, this is P.O.C. All right, this is the intersection where I'm at, when I'm on the opposite side of the street. Those sex offenders are molesting with impossible light. Downtown Ontario luxury apartments where they keep stalking with the Ontario International Airport by driving into that parking garage, targeting me with the City of Ontario. They're also targeting while a bunch of sex offenders are all night pacing all around right here at the intersection where they're all stalking me all night long using plane and helicopter, and the entities engaging in what is using police, fire, and ambulance vehicles. All the resources of the City of Ontario centered around me. And guess what they also center their attention around? My vagina. And they're obsessing over me with impossible light while I'm at this intersection. Those are the sex offenders reaching all the way across on the opposite side of the street, which is impossible light activity. As impossible as sunlight ricocheting off of the side of their cars when they're entering into the parking garage where the fake sun is over me at that venue. That entire apartment complex is exposed and vulnerable to a federal raid. 7MYM280, license 047LMW, that's Oregon. License 53831H3. All right, the City of Ontario has been keeping my vagina under surveillance all day long, all day, okay? A city full of sex offenders, all I'm doing is identifying them personally as I encounter them. 182CZV, Indiana. They're violent sex offenders. And they're psychopaths monitoring my vagina under a fake sun all day long. 7N40960. License plate 9RWE076. License plate 8JKZ326, I believe. License ONCRN41. License plate. I can't really see that one. You can scratch that. License plate. I can't really see that one either. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. Remember, I'm documenting license plates. The entity is stalking by establishment. The entity is stalking by the people that state where they reside. The entity is stalking by gang stalking demons, stalking you on the sidewalk while they have shadows in front and behind you, behind them, stalking with light. That's another iteration of stalking with light. Doing so as a psychopath that's stalking somebody else, that's somebody that's ripe for a diagnosis for severe mental illness that is psychopathic and a threat to other people and themselves, and a criminal prosecution for terrorism and furtherance of the conspiracy to commit murder. Their pattern of conduct is going to be used to accomplish both. And I was going to say commit, and that's exactly what I mean. It's going to be used to commit the entity that's gang stalking as well. License 6LBU448, 49404-775, if that's even a real license plate. License, again, 6LRU448, 8SNR865. And I said what I said on purpose. That's what was supposed to come out. The evidence is going to be used to commit the gang stalkers. It's going to be used to have them committed. It's going to be used to have them also convicted and going to federal prison. All right, this is P.O.C. The entity following with planes, just like they were at Ontario Town Square, flying over the CHEVRON and ARCO, where I'm at. Those third parties, again, license 8EIP59Z. That's the ARCO employee who was gang stalking with the demons at the ARCO and the CHEVRON across the street. The entity is engaging in the same pattern of conduct, doing the same thing over and over again. That's called a pattern of conduct, by the way. And that is the entity that provides evidence to prosecute itself. 49404-775 is a piece of paper, a sticker on this raggedy Mustang of this demon. If his family are immigrants, you're going to be deported. The entity that acts with that impunity, they hate this country, and so does the government that's gang stalking. The entity's doing so. Alan D. WAPNER, he hates this country while he's gang stalking. American citizens, you hate this country. And this is the evidence proving that. This is the evidence proving that you hate the country in the face of what is hard evidence, speaking to what is improper for you to engage in. And not only do they continuously engage in it, they engage in more of it. Following me from the Ontario Town Square to what is the ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue. That's what you'll see the evidence of while I'm documenting the demons flying over me at that Ontario Town Square. Just like you see this morning when they're flying over the 280 North Lemon Apartments. Doing so repeatedly in that video. That's what they're doing when they're flying over Lemon Avenue. That's what they're doing when they're flying over me on the sidewalk when I'm walking toward the 60 freeway where the Economy Inn is. When they're flying over me while I'm at that mobile gas station, flying over my head, going out of their way to fly over me on the sidewalk. That's the Ontario International Airport. And again, those terrorists hate this country. That's why they murder American citizens. The entity is engaging in conduct that requires shutting down that airport, disbanding the police department, the fire department. They are not concerned with putting out fires. They are engaged in what is surveillance. The city of Ontario is going to be essentially a desert because I'm also going to drain the pockets. These demons are also going to pay, in addition to what is being prosecuted for terrorism. All right, it is currently, let me get this demon. He's on surveillance cameras inside of CHEVRON, 9MOW043. All right, chubby, fair skin, gang stalker with the city of Ontario that's using planes to engage in that pattern of conduct, and it's currently 8:42 p.m. The entity that engages in impunity, meaning engages in more stalking the more you document it, that's the entity that's going to be prosecuted based on that evidence. It's impunity and malice, the disregard of, and that's again the hatred for this country, and that's at the forefront of the prosecution of domestic terrorists while you're targeting them. When you're deporting them, when you're diagnosing and committing them, when you're putting them in federal prison, when you are prosecuting them for damages, this is all of the evidence that is going to be put at the forefront. All right, it is currently again 8:42 p.m. P.O.C. All right, this is Ontario Police, 1680792, vehicle 1109. This is the Ontario Police that are testing authority. This is a game to them. They think that they're not going to federal prison for stalking conspicuously, and they are. Again, that is, again, vehicle number 1109. They are monitoring. That's conspicuous stalking. They're doing the same thing using helicopters. They're doing it in the specific environment. Let me remind you where that demon is at, stalking with the people of the state who are stalking with light like they are every other time, where the entity's keeping the fakes on and stalking as a department at the Starbucks at 507, where they're engaged in kidnapping, and they think it's a game that they're going to stalk somebody right in their face and that they're not going to federal prison. This is where the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking, just flew over, and then this demon pulls up to engage in that pattern of conduct. That's a male. Engaging in P.O.C., engaged in Title 18, that's a Caucasian male. They're going to prison. This is exactly what he's got a mustache, he's going to prison. They think it's a game and they're going to federal prison. Full threat, it's domestic terrorism and psychological torture. They think that it's a game and they're going to federal prison for that. It's happening in the specific environment. Let me show you my shadow here. Let me show you my shadow here. Here's one shadow here, here's another shadow. All these demons are monitoring. And the police are gang stalking, bearing weapons, using county-issued vehicles, and terrorizing me on video by helicopter, are taking off, stalking from the airport. There's no airport over here. They're stalking. The Ontario police are going to federal prison, and everybody's going to witness how terrorists are going to be targeted. Molestation, 80645K1, because the people of the state think it's a game as well. And you're going to witness how terrorists are going to be targeted in the U.S. And guess what? The immigrants are being deported. All of them. It is currently 9:09 p.m. This is not published on with regard to what Alan D. WAPNER, an enemy of the United States, is publishing on the website while he's engaged in targeting sexual violence, the conspiracy to commit murder, pedophilia, with the psychopaths who are gang stalking American citizens as they hate this country, and the police openly engaging in what is terrorizing the person that is also prosecuting them. This is the very evidence that's getting them disbanded, and every single last one of those gang stalkers under the fake sun and in the specific environment where my shadow's appearing on this vehicle, they're going to prison. That's where the Ontario police are going. Okay, and the demons of the Ontario International Airport, that's a demon. That's a demon-possessed person, as are all of them. They're going to federal prison. Okay, they're stalking in planes, they're stalking in helicopters, they're stalking in police, fire, and ambulance vehicles. They're doing so to murder a targeted individual. You're going to federal prison. And because the government took it so much like it's a joke, that's exactly why you're going to prison. Because terrorism is not a small thing, and it's also not a laughable matter, and it's nothing that any enemy of the United States is going to get away with. And the Ontario Police Department, the City of Ontario, is the enemy of the United States. This is P.O.C. It's 9:10 p.m. That's called, again, that's the entity that's engaging what is, you're playing with the wrong person. I'm prosecuting you, okay? And you are going to federal prison. That's what you're going to find out. This is the specific environment. They're all monitoring. So you're going to have a police officer stalk and terrorize you in your face? No, you're going to federal prison. You're an enemy of the United States. You're going to prison. P.O.C.
All right, the video you just listened to, and again, seconds later, it's 9:11 p.m. This is the Ontario International Airport following me from the square to the Starbucks where I'm at, okay? I'm doing so like I documented when I'm coming from Euclid Avenue and I walked to the 1627 East Hope Boulevard. That was the Ontario International Airport following me around, and they're doing so while I'm documenting the terrorists who commit kidnappings, and those kidnappers are going to prison. They're being disbanded, and they are openly engaging in criminal conduct. That's what you're witnessing while terrorists are being exposed, and so are the people of the state. The people of the state are enemies of the United States. The people of the state are engaging in terrorism where they've conspired to murder someone, and they did not accomplish that, and now I'm exposing it and I'm prosecuting them, and they're exposing themselves as enemies of this country that want to commit serial killings and sacrifices, and now they're doing it before the world, before the federal government that's also going to provide the justice that is required. The entity is stalking again by planes, stalking me from one place to another. That's what stalking is, following from place to place. And this is also outside of what's published on the website for the Ontario International Airport, as I'm always capturing. And not only that, the frequency. There are no flights and arrivals and departures happening every 32 seconds. The entity is engaging in that in the specific environment. The entity is doing so also while arrivals and departures coming from 2500 Airport Drive does not include hovering over Lemon Avenue. It doesn't include hovering over Euclid Avenue at the Economy Inn. It doesn't include hovering over the Starbucks at 507 right here, 507 North Euclid Avenue. It doesn't include hovering over the parking lot. And none of that is irrelevant, okay? It's all relevant, in other words, toward the specific environment where the airport is targeting in concert with the kidnappers. Understand how Alan D. WAPNER is threatening my life and safety. While Alan D. WAPNER, the Ontario International Airport, has committed kidnappings with that department while they're monitoring. The Ontario Police are gang stalking with the use of the commercial planes. And the entity's kidnapping, this is what Jason Knight and Lester Keys engaged in on January 13, 2020. That's how I captured gang stalking at the 636 North Vine Avenue 7-Eleven, where there's no arrivals or departures from the airport while you're hovering over that 7-Eleven, which is much more west beyond this location where the Ontario International Airport was gang stalking me, just like they are now. And they're providing evidence against each other. That's how idiotic these demons are. And I want to be clear, this is mental illness. Severe mental illness, that psychopathic obsession and delusion. They're being prosecuted. They're not accomplishing what they set out to do. And they're doing it in front of the world, and they're still doing it. Okay, that's the entity that's engaging in what is clearly targeting using commercial planes. That's directly exposing the government and those airlines. That's a straightforward prosecution and a body of evidence supporting that. And amongst the entity, they're engaged in stalking with impossible light, like I'm exposing the people of the state all the time. They're doing it with the government. They're targeting together. They're monitoring together. Kidnapping also together. That is the evidence that's going to disband the Ontario Police, and the Ontario Police gang stalking is the evidence that's going to prosecute the people of the state. They're going to be committed. They're going to be prosecuted and put in federal prison. They're going to be labeled as the enemies of the United States, that they are terrorists. Okay, I just want to be clear. That's the entity. Seconds later, more plane activity, and that's evidence of the Ontario Airport following from place. And I was going to say Ontario Police. You can hear that because the Ontario Police are gang stalking with as the entity. So all that demon did was put itself in the face of the federal prosecutor, who was not missing any matter of evidence. I don't even need it. I don't even need it. You can consider them disbanded already, because they are. You consider them disbanded already. And the entity provides more evidence to me while you engage in stalking me by helicopter every night and every day, while you engage in following me around the city in your Ontario Police Department vehicles. You're losing those vehicles and those badges and those uniforms, and you're going to federal prison when I document you. You're going to federal prison. That was a warning, and you disregarded it, and you're going to federal prison. It is currently, by the way, 9:15 p.m. The people of the state also think that it's a joke, and these demon-possessed psychopaths that are stalking in planes, they think that it is a game, and they're actually going to be committed. They're actually going into federal cells. They are actually going to be identified with regard to what is necessary in the United States, as I have demonstrated and proved it. What is targeting terrorists that hate this country, that want to destroy this country from the inside out. The entity is gang stalking right now. The people of the state that I'm documenting in that video that you heard, they're all stalking with light, and that's what the demon possessed are doing. And this is what they're doing while they're stalking with the police. This is what they're doing while they're stalking with the entity using planes. And that's what you're doing right in front of my face while I get your face, I get your license plate, I get that vehicle number, I get the specific environment, I get your co-defendants, the people of the state, because those are the same demons you committed kidnapping with on May 29, 2025, on July 4th, 2025, on July 15, 2025, on January 13, 2020, on June 18, 2021, on September 25th, 2020, on June 16, 2022. All those kidnappings, every single last one of you are going to prison. Every single last one, including while I document your ongoing impunity tonight on an ongoing basis. You're going to federal prison, and it's your own fault. You're a bunch of fools, and you're getting locked up. Okay? It's currently 9:16 p.m. You're not making any statement while you're engaging in the provision of more evidence by continuously stalking. You're not looking like you're defying anything. You're looking like fools who are going to be, who were publicly warned, and you're going to be publicly put in the position that I told you was going to happen. You're going to prison. It's currently 9:16 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, sex offenders molesting with impossible light. These are psychopaths. License 7 P.O.A. 687, mentally ill, sex offender, violent sex offender, 9RRF 454, 6XOR 146, 9LYT 379, co-conspirators to murder, and the police are stalking by helicopter, 8PRG 403, incriminating every last one of them, 8GAR 394. That's the entity that's gang stalking under the fake sun on the same Euclid Avenue while that fake sun is rising and setting on this street. Remember, August 15th, I believe, it's 2025. The Ontario police are on the same street at the sunset at Holt and Euclid, and I'm documenting the license plates in the street, and the entities are doing what? By helicopter, flying in circles over all the defendants while I'm documenting. You're aiding in what is putting them in prison. That's what the entity is doing, while terrorism is being documented again, okay? This is the P.O.C. It's currently 9:18 p.m. Those are the sex offenders. Those are the terrorists. Those are the psychopaths that like to engage in what is sexual violence in a satanic manner to psychologically torture you, okay? While they sit around staring at communication devices like the maniacal, unhinged, sex-offending psychopaths that they are, okay? Monitoring, engaged in federal stalking. There are specific facilities to put psychopaths like that, okay? License plate 44486P2. 8BOM 580, 4UUW 412, 8EHD 004. Okay? They're all stalking with impossible light. The demons are in the evidence because they can't monitor in any other way, and this is providence, and they're experiencing judgment because they're both being humiliated, and they're also obsessively engaged in the pattern of conduct at the same time because they are indeed the demon possessed who are obsessively engaged in criminal monitoring, and that's why you're looking at what is the inability. No, it's the decision. Because they're already committed to satanic behavior. They've already sacrificed themselves, and their mental health is literally ruined. They're psychopaths. They are mentally ill. So you are witnessing them being humiliated while they are very much still engaging in their pattern of conduct, which shows how psychopathic they are. That's why you are sitting and watching me capture video of a bunch of psychopaths, a bunch of weirdos obsessed with my vagina, documented. They're sitting in traffic with all manner of impossible light. Every single last one is a psychopath. Every single last one is a demon. All of them. A population of dead people. They're all dead. All right? The dead are being exposed. The dead are being prosecuted. The dead are going to be diagnosed. The dead are being humiliated while they're engaging in their satanic conduct, which is absolutely, absurdly demented. P.O.C. They're sitting around in engineer light. The engineer light conduct is your proof knowing that you're looking at a psychopath. You're looking at somebody that is unhinged. You're looking at somebody that you should not leave alone with your kids. You're looking at somebody that you should not let into your home where you care for those people. Okay? You're looking at somebody that you should not leave your money around. Okay, you're looking at somebody that you should not permit to be in any position of necessarily being somebody of trustworthy, because they're not. They're demons. This is P.O.C. It's currently 9:21 p.m. Those psychopaths are engaging in the conduct on video in my face, because there's no way for them to engage in it. There's no other way for them to engage in it, because it is their P.O.C. And they're being, therefore, humiliated while they're still obsessively stalking me. P.O.C. Ontario Police crossing path, monitoring the evidence of the Ontario Police stalking on video, doing so at 9:23 p.m. Just ongoing. The federal government is watching, and the federal government is watching me prosecute. They're going to prison. All right, this is P.O.C. These are the enemies of the United States that also think that it's funny when they murder people. You need to know that. They think that it's funny when they're watching you on the internet, putting you on the internet in the nude. They think that it's funny when they sell your images on sex sites. They think that that's funny as well. They think that it's a joke. They don't take it seriously when they are harming other people and ruining their lives, ruining their career prospects. They think that that's entertaining as well. They think that that's funny. And this is the entity that's taking very lightly terrorism. Taking it very lightly. Just rolling around the block, crossing path again. That's fine. Enjoy it, because you're going to sit in a cell. And I'm not playing. You're going to sit in a federal cell. Have fun shining all the light. You're putting yourselves exactly where you belong. Exactly where you belong. And you cannot say you didn't know, or it's unfair, because the whole world heard your warning that you were laughing at. You thought it was funny. You thought it was a game. The entities engaging in this conduct, and that's Ontario Police, monitoring the evidence, communicating an unlawful threat, engaging in psychological torture, and doing so with impunity while conspiring murder. You're gang stalking in furtherance of committing murder. You are also doing that as a gang stalking corrupt police officer, wearing weapons, prepared to commit murder, while you are criminally stalking in the path as a maniacal psychopath, a demon, who does not have a sane mindset. They're mentally ill. Okay, it's currently 9:25 p.m. That's the entity that's engaged in that. That's the Ontario Police. Everybody's paying attention. Note that impunity. These are enemies of the United States. Pay attention, because what's going to happen is going to happen in front of everyone. This is P.O.C. All right, that same agency, stalking again using helicopter. This is going by the demon that you see, the Caucasian male with the top lip mustache. It looked like a sandy brown mustache, looked like a white male. License 1680792, vehicle 1109, is gang stalking, and is doing so with the same agency that's now gang stalking by helicopter, and doing so as though you are threatening. This is what the purpose is, but this is the delusional demons that are putting themselves, this is how mentally ill they are. They're going to prison for what they're doing, and you're failing and threatening. I'm not sitting in a corner somewhere crying and breaking down, and they're doing it while they're being openly prosecuted. So I just want to be clear. The intent, however, is to threaten and psychologically torture as though you're defying the federal government, that you're going to threaten and conspire to kill somebody and nobody's going to do anything about it. And that's the same with the people of the state. They're communicating the same unlawful threat. And when you're standing in front of a federal judge, this is what they're going to listen to. This is what the evidence they're going to review. Okay? License 1614297. Hold on. This is license plate. Let me get this. Oh, yeah. We got two of them. 1614297 with the people of the state. Stalking by helicopter. Yeah, doing a good job. Monitoring. Say cheese. This is monitoring. They're doing so in the engineered environment with helicopter. I'm capturing images right now. Doing so, another vehicle, license 1591175, a demons shining with light, 1591758, vehicle 1024. Those are the demons that are monitoring, doing so with helicopter as well. That's the entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct, okay? So that's the entity that's engaged. That's the response as terrorists. That's the response to the federal government. You need to understand, with regard to American citizens, you need to be aware, first of all, the psychopaths that are engaging in terrorism and murdering American citizens, and they are a part of what they want to be mistaken as law enforcement. This is not law enforcement. These are demons. First of all, these are demons. And they are going to federal prison for what they're engaging in. You're witnessing that maniacal conduct. That's what's murdering people. Okay, the Ontario Police, they're serial killers, they're murderers, and they're kidnappers. And they are also encouraging this lawlessness by the demon-possessed people of the state.
So these puppets are following behind those demons that are going to prison, that are being disbanded, and they're done with law enforcement. The entire department is being fired. They're not going anywhere in law enforcement ever. They're not going to be in law enforcement anymore. That's the entity that calls itself responding or standing up or they're being documented, and they're going to be prosecuted for terrorism and gang stalking, and their partners are going to prison. Okay, everybody that's gang stalking, just like they are right now in real time in the specific environment, while I'm documenting gang stalking with the rest of the people of the state in engineer light, where the fake sun rises and sets, and they're doing so while they're listening to the evidence, engaging in what the allegations are, criminal surveillance, not law enforcement. And upon engaging in criminal surveillance, they're engaging in what is psychological torture and conspiring murder. And that's not law enforcement either. The Ontario Police Department is engaging in psychological torture, and that specific department has engaged in what is documented acts of criminal defamation. So they're both engaging in psychological torture, stalking me, and they've also specifically engaged in defaming my character in order to maintain a narrative so that this entity can steal money and property from me, can help Tracy Banks steal property from me, can engage in what is kidnapping me, accusing me of crimes I never engaged in. All right, so I want to be clear. That's what's stalking right now while keeping the evidence under surveillance, doing so by helicopter, doing so by 3 department vehicles, another one cross path right now while I'm speaking. And the entity is doing so while they've engaged in those criminal acts and while they've been gang stalking the entire time, which the P.O.C. captures. They've engaged in criminal acts of defaming my character pursuant to this pattern of conduct, intending to commit murder, intending to steal my money and property, which the Ontario Police Department has already stolen money from me. They've already defamed my character while engaging in psychological torture. That's malice. You are specifically defaming someone that you intend to harm. That's why they're also going to prison while they're gang stalking. Okay, and they do so in real time. So that's why you're pulling up right next to me. Let me go ahead and document. They're engaged in federal stalking while the evidence is being uploaded. Those are the terrorists you need to understand with regard to the demon possessed in this country. Those are the maniacal psychopaths that commit violent acts against groups of people, harm as many people as they can, until the moment that they are restrained, until the moment that the feds are raiding them, until the moment that they are literally taken down, based on whatever psychopathic conduct that they are engaged in. This is violence that the Ontario Police Department is engaged in, not law enforcement. And these are demons that are going out with a bang. That's what they call themselves doing. Okay, they're already dead. All right, they're violent sex offenders keeping my vagina under surveillance. They are an embarrassment and shame to those that want to represent law enforcement. They're done with law enforcement. That's the truth, and it doesn't change. You're looking at what is, again, a spirit that is delusional. This is that retarded spirit operating over people that are wearing uniforms that embarrass what is supposed to be law enforcement officers. They're engaged in criminal conduct while wearing those uniforms, while using those resources associated with the law enforcement agency. And they're doing so because they're responding to me. You know why they're responding to me? First of all, that's not a response. You're going to prison. That's not a response. That's not retaliation when you're going to prison. Okay? That's not defiance of what I'm telling you, what I'm laying down. You're going to prison. You're not accomplishing that. But you want to know why they're going out of the way to do it? Because first of all, those demons are very much fearful. You're dealing with a spirit of pride and ego. And they would rather show that foolish show right now than stand down. And that is why you go to federal prison for gang stalking as a corrupt law enforcement agency. That's why. They're engaging in what is quote-unquote responding while they're very much engaged in surveillance. They're engaged in quote-unquote responding while they're very much fearful of what's coming. Not only are they engaged in criminal conduct, listen to that helicopter, not only are they engaged in criminal conduct, but they're engaged in what is psychological torture, defaming my character while stalking me just like that. Jason Knighton is going to federal prison, and his partners are proving what I already said that Jason Knighton is doing, gang stalking with the people of the state. He was engaged in criminal summoning with Lester Keys, and he's going to prison. He's going to federal prison for kidnapping in 2020. There's no statute of limitations. That entire department is being disbanded. And he's going to prison, targeting, keeping me under surveillance, a psychopath that was stalking me by being ahead in the path and engaging in criminal summoning while I then document, which I'm going to, and I'm documenting now, and I documented then, and then he engaged in assault and battery, made up a charge, and then kidnapped me. Okay? And try to force me to sign a petition to go to court when you kidnap me. No, we're going to see this all the way through, Satan, because you're going to prison. But that's because it was an unlawful arrest in the first place. Oh, if you just sign this citation, then I'll take you back to it. No. You had no right to take me in the first place. After you engaged in attacking me because I'm documenting your criminal conduct, this criminal conduct that they're engaging in right now, that's what Jason Knighton was engaged in. Gang stalking.
He's going to prison. And his partners that are gang stalking under the fake sun that rises and sets on Euclid Avenue, where they're stalking me by helicopter right now, where they're monitoring the evidence that's being uploaded to the internet, where they're engaged in surveillance right now, they're going to prison for that. They commit murders while you're gang stalking as a police department. Those are murderers. Those are kidnappers. And by the way, my documentation proves that. They kidnap me over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And they did so putting on paper criminally defamatory content in order to make it stick, in order to steal property and money that Tracy Banks still has not produced, still has not given to me, while her co-defendants are in the streets stalking me day and night still. They're still stalking me on behalf and with Tracy Banks, who has money and property that belongs to me. She still hasn't run me my money. While her co-defendants that she kidnapped me with over and over again are still gang stalking. Those demons are not responding. They're going to prison. Those are demons. Those are maniacal psychopaths you need to pay attention to. They practice witchcraft. When you deal in demonic spirits, you will lose your right mind. That's what you're witnessing right now. These are unhinged and delusional terrorists. They are a threat to the public, and they are the enemies of this country. They are domestic enemies. They hate this country. They hate law and order. They hate literally the mention of the Constitution and the impropriety and lawlessness of their conduct. And what do when it's brought out and documented and addressed? They engage in more of it. Understand the ordinary target individual that is threatened by that is intimidated by that is oppressed by that, while being sexually violated and kidnapped repeatedly by those demons. You're engaging in what is conduct that is unlawful. It's terrorism, while the police are stalking American citizens and kidnapping and murdering them, and then controlling the narrative after they're dead, getting rid of the body cam, cutting short the body cam, the people of the state that are gang stalking with them, bearing false witness, setting them up for crimes that they didn't commit, stating that they did X, Y, and Z, and that's why they're dead on the asphalt. Those are murderers of the Ontario Police Department, and they tried to sacrifice me, and they're gang stalking right now. And they've already defamed my character because they're gang stalking, and they're gang stalking right now while they're engaged in what I said at the outset, criminal surveillance. Every word that I say, and the vagina between my legs, they're keeping it under surveillance. That's what's engaging in what is responding to what I just said. That helicopter activity, don't forget about it, because they're going to prison. The demons in the multiple police vehicles, don't forget about that. That's ongoing psychological torture tactics while you're being documented, conspiring to murder someone. So you want to go out of your way to prove that you're conspiring my murder. Stalking in my face? You're going to stalk me in my face? That's what the entity is doing. Yes, I am conspiring your murder, and what are you going to do about it? That's what the entity is doing. That's what they call challenging, and they do it with the immigrants. They're being deported. Okay? This is the P.O.C. Those are the demons that are gang stalking with the Ontario Police. This is lawlessness and chaos of psychopaths that are engaged in criminal conduct in the city of Ontario. The Ontario Police Department is fully vulnerable and exposed to a raid. So is the Ontario Police Department, the Ontario Fire Department, the entity that is gang stalking at the Ontario City Hall. Every venue, including Chevron, that's gang stalking right now with the entity that's specifically using Spanish-speaking music with regard to the policy for deporting immigrants. Remember this documentation. Remember it, because these are psychopaths that engage in criminal conduct, and they forget about it tomorrow. They forget about it because they're demons. They're mentally ill. Don't forget about it. They're monitoring. It's ongoing public information, everything that I'm saying. They're all obsessed and monitoring my vagina all day long. They're all listening to me. The demons that are going to prison engaged in stalking in 3 additional police vehicles, and the demons are using Spanish-speaking music regarding guess who's getting deported. Guess who the Department of Homeland Security is going to be dragging out of this country? The enemies that don't even like this country. Because that's a response. Understand what the entity is showing you, what the demon possess, what their true sentiments are toward this country. Because all I'm doing is enforcing the law. That's all I'm doing. You don't like it because I know the law. You don't like it because you're on the wrong side of the law. Oh, no. You actually like being on the wrong side of the law. You just don't like that I prove that you're on the wrong side of the law. Because your purpose is to appear as though you're in the right and I'm in the wrong. And that's not happening. So what you are all actually doing, I want to be clear, that's a statement by those that are of the Spanish-speaking language, I suppose. This is a gang-stalking immigrant that's hostile to being deported for being a terrorist, while I'm reporting them through my documentation to ICE. This is the entity that doesn't like being dragged through the streets, doesn't like being raided, but yet they're engaging in gang stalking. This is why you don't shed tears for them. That's deliberate conduct, using that sort of music to monitor me while you're gang stalking at the same time. With the police that are stalking in helicopters, stalking in police vehicles, remember this evidence. The exposed enemies of the United States. Pay attention and pay very close attention to that. Do not miss it.
Everything is deliberate with regard to what they're doing, where they do it, the moment that they do it, because they're stalking and monitoring me. And while you're doing that, you are making deliberate and detailed statements about your sentiments toward the United States. And by the way, if you don't like it here, you're welcome to leave. In fact, the Department of Homeland Security is going to be personally deporting many of you out, since the entity is engaging in targeting in that manner. Understand, that was a very specific tactic. Okay? That's referring to what are deportees, future deportees. And it's good because the immigrants in Ontario, you are being deported. But it's not only Spanish-speaking immigrants. Though all immigrants are subject to deportation, okay? This is P.O.C. Pay attention. Pay attention. The entity's engaging in that's monitoring. And I also want to be clear, you're dealing with an entity, okay? So the entity that's engaged in what is stalking by helicopter, as I report a gang stalker to ICE. That happened the other night. The Ontario Police Department, that are enemies of the United States, that are pro-terrorism and pro-terrorism with immigrants, engages in what is stalking me by helicopter as I make that report on the Department of Homeland Security website. Okay, that's the entity that's intentionally stalking through the means of that sort of cultural music. That's a statement by the entity. It's a statement of again, un-American enemies who don't like this country. And so I want to be clear: terrorists are being deported, and you only don't like it because you're an enemy of the United States. And it is absolutely proper and justice that you're deported from this country. And that, I want to be clear, it's not just that. That's not an individual. That's an entity that made that statement right now. And you're going to remember that because they hate this country. That's why they're gang stalking in California. That's why they're gang stalking with the government in the United States. These are people that don't know anything about patriotism, can't even spell it. These are people that have no loyalty to this country. These are people that murder other people for money. That's where they're at. That's the low bar that they're hanging from. Okay, and they're animals that don't belong here. We have enough sex offenders. We have enough terrorists that are homegrown. The immigrants are being deported as they are making a statement by a gang stalker that's engaging in what is specifically using a foreign language as a means of monitoring me. Understand what it is that I'm exposing. That's where I'm getting to. I'm analyzing that. The demons are engaged in very symbolic behavior. Okay, so they are engaged. So you're paying attention to what the demon possessors are always doing, just like being loud while they hate when I start exposing stuff that they don't want me to talk about. Then the environment gets really, really loud, and I'm still going to continue to speak about it. The entity is hostile to the policy regarding deportation, but you're engaged in terrorism, and you're engaged in terrorism specifically with the terrorists of the corrupt police department that engages in kidnapping on their behalf. While you document them, they think that they can summon the terrorists and have you kidnapped and taken away. As immigrants, you're being deported, and even as a homegrown terrorist, you're going to prison. Okay, the entities engaging in that, and they are sharing in terrorism together, and that's the government sentiment toward terrorism with the immigrant population, toward terrorism, period. While that method of monitoring was specifically and deliberately utilized. So I want to make sure that you pay attention to that. All I'm doing is pointing out to you, pay attention to what the entity is telling you. They are telling you that they hate this country. They're telling you that they hate the Constitution, that they hate your rights. They hate your human rights. They hate your enforcement of those rights. They hate that. That's what you're witnessing happening. And this is, again, going to become increasingly aggressive, increasingly violent in this country. These are the demon-possessed that are already dead. They don't have a moral compass. You're seeing they don't engage in any reasoning. They don't exercise any logic. They have zero self-control. This is the spirit of Satan operating over a people who are altogether mentally ill, altogether depraved, sexually perverted, okay? Unhinged in their maniacal behaviors. While they are targeting together as evil people, they're targeting people together. And the immigrant population is subject to deportation by that, because of that, due to that. And the entity is making a statement by using that type of music to engage in monitoring. So I just want you to pay attention to that. They don't like this country. And by the way, this is why Trump is doing the exact appropriate thing by deporting the immigrants in the state of California. And the evidence, the P.O.C. is providing what is literally federal jurisdiction to deport every single immigrant household in the state of California. Okay, those are the true sentiments. I don't care how nice or how professional any immigrant that you know. In California, federal group stalking and monitoring is underway by every single last person, every single business. And this is the true sentiment of those ticking time bombs. Okay, just because you can't suspect that threat, that doesn't mean that it's not there. I've documented and I've exposed it. And that threat is there. And that threat is showing itself to you, and you need to take heed to it. The threat is hiding amongst corrupt law enforcement agencies that are murderers, that engage in corruption, that engage in merely keeping themselves a regular paycheck while they're engaged in surveillance. That's not law enforcement.
They're not investigating anything. They're engaged in surveillance, driving by more and more vehicles the more that I document. They're doing so in the specific environment. They're doing so with regard to evidence of a fake son, including over the Ontario Police Department. These are they're demons, okay? That's the entity that's doing that. And the demons possessed are so psychopathic, they engage in that conduct and disregard a whole body of evidence that's going to boomerang and have an effect in a very real tribunal. The entity is not reasonable, however. They don't think at all. They just act. That's a threat to the national security. That is a threat to American citizens. That is a very real threat. This is chaos and lawlessness. And they're acting with a corrupt law enforcement agency. This is just Ontario. This is what the state of California is actually, this is the condition that it's actually in. When you get beneath the surface, this is the state that this is the state, as in, this is the condition that the entire state is actually in. It doesn't matter the neighborhood. San Diego, California is gang stalking. They are entirely corrupt. This is the actual state, the actual status of the entire state of California. And this is letting you know what's going on in the country. You have systematic murders. These are serial killings that the government knows about. They know about them. They're keeping themselves employed. They know about who's killing who, who's kidnapping who, who's molesting who. They're engaged in surveillance. They're monitoring my vagina. The Ontario police just deliberately chose to engage in conspicuous stalking. That's an unlawful threat by a stalker that's conspiring your murder. And the government is telling you to your face, I am conspiring to kill you. I'm going to look dead at you while I'm conspiring to kill you and stalking you in your face. That's an impermissible threat. It's documented. It's on the record, and everybody else is witnessing. And everything that I said before they engaged in that documented federal offense is that what you're witnessing, remember what you're witnessing, because it's on the record. The court's going to remember what's happening. But the entity is going to federal prison. The entity is going to be disbanded. And remember this, because they are, and today, right now, as demons who are triggered, engage in immediate conduct. And why? Because everybody's watching. And so you are thinking that you're not making a statement. You're not standing up against anything. You're going to prison. That's how I know what you're doing, demon. That's how I see you, Satan. And this is the entity that, again, they're delusional. Their mental illness is very real. You're not standing up to anything. You know that it's going to happen because I saw you when you thought nobody in the world saw you. You're going to federal prison. And there is, again, over 20, 34 of the Ontario Police Department, a lot of them are going to federal prison. They're getting locked up. And this is, again, justice. And not only that, it's going to be a desert. The airport's engaged in terrorism. The fire department's engaged in terrorism. The ambulance providers are engaged in terrorism, AMR. They don't even have an office per se. They're gang stalking with the city of Ontario. The entities engaging in this conduct, and they're doing so while they are openly expressing, that's what I want you to pay attention to, they're openly expressing the sentiments toward this country, toward American citizens, toward their human and constitutional rights, toward the law, toward abiding the law. You're an immigrant and that's how you feel about the law. That's a threat to you. You need to understand that. This is not to cause fear. I'm telling you right now, this is a warning. This lawlessness is not supposed to be exposed. They thought that nobody could see them in their witchcraft. That, ooh, they're so elite. Nobody. No, I see you very clearly. And it's my job to make sure you see them very clearly. Do not be ignorant about the enemy's devices. Now, this is the entity that secretly conceals hatred and disdain for other people, that they want to ruin, they want to literally destroy. And they're doing so as puppets of Satan. This is the wicked. And they are a population. They are a population. And they fill the government. They fill the government. That's what's engaging, what is going out of their way, wasting gas to roll up next to me in 3 Ontario Police Department vehicles, which, by the way, with regard to reality, they're going to prison. That was not even a response. But what are you picking out from that? What are you deducing from that? Because you need to learn from this. What are you getting from that? They hate this country. Those are police officers that should be upholding the law. While they look perplexed like they don't know that's a psychopath. This is the same street where the fake sun is rising and setting. You don't have any reasonable question. You know exactly what's going on. And they're monitoring every word that I say, and then they pull up next to me and say, hey, what's going on? What are you talking about? That's a psychopath. That's a psychopath that is having sex with your kids when they're sure that nobody else is ever going to know. and that is secretly threatening that child, controlling them and their mind and their reality, while putting on a whole other mask before everyone else because nobody else knows what they're doing. All right, and that is, again, the illusion. That illusion that they practice is evident to you in the environment that they're around in. I'm telling you, these are demons and they live amongst illusions. That's why they're so insane. They don't operate with reality, with facts. Witchcraft and voodoo and hoodoo, they've literally gone bat poo. They're gone. They're already dead. These are demon-possessed people. They're already dead. Okay, this is an entity, and I want to be clear, it's not just the old people, it's the young people. I'm looking at demons that are teenagers and they're sitting up stalking me. I don't know why they're not in school somewhere. I don't know why they're not somewhere actually studying, but they are teenagers stalking me. That's what the government has the young people engaging in. That's what the demon-possessed families have the young people engaging in. They're sitting around monitoring me, engaging in the same exact pattern of conduct. This is what the Ontario Police Department are engaging in, stalking and monitoring me. And they're doing so while they are deliberately monitoring the evidence and making a very clear statement regarding the intent to commit murder. While you're stalking me, conspicuous stalking by the government is that which is committed in furtherance of murder, and it's on the record. They are engaging in that for a term of years. They did it in real time while I'm documenting, and I am very much serious about how the federal prosecution is going to go and how the precedent is being established and how terrorists are going to be targeted. Terrorists that are targeting with children, terrorists that are having sex with children as well, terrorists that are contributing to the delinquency of children while wearing police uniforms. Uniforms that they are incompetent, they are disqualified, they are not worthy to wear or represent. They're not worthy. Okay? They bring shame to that office. They bring shame to it. That's the reality. And the reality is that the demon-possessed cannot deal with facts and reality. And they know the truth. And they know that I know the truth. And they also are embarrassed because you're listening to the truth in real time. And so these are delusional psychopaths that decide in their minds, with an ongoing federal case, that it's a good idea on the record, while it's going on the internet, to engage in some sort of act of retaliation and defiance. I am the voice of the federal government. You need to understand that. I am the authority right now. You need to understand that. And the fact that I can see you, Satan, that was your warning. You thought nobody saw you. I told you what was going to happen years ago, and you're just now starting to experience it. And you are still engaged in criminal conduct. You are going to be faced with the law being laid down on you, the law that you are not above, the law that you are serially violating, laws that are going to be created to deal with terrorists and enemies like you. You are going to federal prison. You just committed that on the record again. And I want to be clear, those of you who are witnessing it, you need to understand the threat to American citizens, people who are unsuspecting. You don't know what's inside of people's hearts. You don't know what's going on in people's minds. You don't know what their intentions are towards you. This is the Lord's message to you to open your eyes and pay attention. Do not be caught off guard. Ontario Police stalking again, okay? Do not be caught off guard. That's the point of this. While I'm exposing to you those that are betrayers of the United States, those that have engaged in criminal conduct directly opposed to what their role should be, those that are engaging in very foolish behavior because they're more concerned about an ego than they are with reality, okay? Your ego's really going to be crushed when you're raided, when you're arrested, when you're in court and it's on TV, when your name is a part of that federal case, and monitoring by vagina is one of the key charges. You're going to be crushed. Your ego's going to be crushed then. When you're diagnosed, when your mental illness is discussed in court, your ego's going to be crushed then. This is what they're thinking about while they're stalking in the path, because that's what they're doing. The entity has no warrant or probable cause to engage in this, and this is the prosecution for criminal surveillance. And the reality is, you don't have a right to be working at Chevron. You don't have a right to be inside of Starbucks. You don't have a right to be there as a customer or as an employee. Why? Because the specific environment is there, and then the specific environment, it's ongoing surveillance, unbeknownst to American citizens, however. Unbeknownst. But the reality is that surveillance is underway. Surveillance that the government doesn't have any constitutional authority to engage in. And the government not only is engaged in surveillance as it's exposed, oh, you're looking at them threatening me while they're conspiring my murder. That's why you're gang stalking in the first place. And doing so right in front of my face, over and over and over and over. The Ontario Police flying over my head at the Ontario Town Square this morning. The Ontario Police flying over my head this evening by helicopter at the same Ontario Town Square where the fake sun set. This is the same street where it rises, in alignment to me at both times, 12 hours apart.
This is where the entity's keeping the fake sun, and the entity is gang stalking by helicopter as those demons in those vehicles, and I document them, and they think that they are making a response. You are not even a police force. You do not have authority. You are witnessing, you're being stripped of the authority that you stole. The authority that you got from Satan, who doesn't have authority, and it was temporary. That's why you're openly being investigated. That's why you're openly being charged. That's why you're openly being prosecuted. That's why you're openly being fired. Continuously stalking and harassing a helicopter, that you're going to federal prison. You're doing much of the same. That's what got you in this boat in the first place. That's not an act of defiance. You're going where you belong. While you continuously engage in that, the rest of you in this country need to learn that law enforcement is engaged in surveillance, not policing. They're engaged in surveillance. You're looking at them show their aggression, show their hatred for this country, for American citizens, while I enforce my rights. And I speak to what Satan thought that nobody knew he was doing. Then they show their true colors. Then you're seeing them show their true colors. And you've been looking at their true colors, but you're looking at it in a context that they want you to be confused by. They would rather you confuse it with racism. They would rather you confuse it with a training issue that they need. You would rather them confuse it with just, some sort of socioeconomic, some demographic issue, some sort of disparity that they have with the department or within that region, or just personnel issues. They would rather anything but Satan. Okay, I brought it all out to the forefront. They're demons. They're demon possessed. They're dead. And not only that, they're wicked. So you're talking about they're given over to having sex with children. They're engaged in all manner of practice of witchcraft. They routinely engage in what is sex rituals. They practice voodoo. They're engaged in black magic. They're engaged in what is sacrificing American citizens unto Satan, which is, again, when you're prosecuting it, that is the conspiracy to commit murder. That's why the Ontario police are gang stalking me. They have put in to commit murder. They're waiting for the circumstance where they can pin me and take my life. And that is, again, the Ontario police are still engaged in murdering me while a third party engages in. That's what Tracy Banks and Jason Fields tried to do by poisoning. Okay, they've already committed attempted murder. Guess who's ready to show up and claim that I took my own life? The Ontario police, the autopsy report, the entity that's going to conduct the investigation after the fact. They are ready to come up and clean up the scene while they commit murder as an entity. That's why the Ontario police are stalking me. They commit murder as an entity. These are serial killers. And that's how that system operates. The Ontario police is going to federal prison, everyone that I document. They're engaged in criminal activity. Conspiracy to commit murder is a crime. That's a crime. And it's also, again, it's escalated because they're engaged in conspiracy to commit murder as a population. This is organized crime. And they've already stolen money from me, stolen property. So they've conspired by murder to get away with what they've already stolen from me. They engaged in defaming both defamation and psychological torture at the same time. Do you understand what that means? While you're trying to call somebody crazy, but at the same time you're engaged in an ongoing campaign of trying to quote unquote drive them crazy, and you're sitting back making up information. Oh, they're crazy. They suffer from bipolar disorder. And when we saw her experiencing a breakdown, she was having a psychotic fit. While you're engaged in what is psychological torture, trying to make that while they're also practicing witchcraft. Okay, so they're sending demonic spirits. Their witchcraft doesn't work on me. It's going to come back to them. You're witnessing them, the mental illness of the entity that's gang stalking as the police. Those demons cause them to make these foolish decisions. You're witnessing it. They're mentally ill. All right? They are very ill-informed, misinformed. Okay? And they've been engaged in corruption for so long, they can't tell the difference when it's not going to work out anymore. They can't even read the tea leaves. They can't tell. And that's because of the condition that they're in. And it's also because they are so corrupt. The entities engaged in this, and I want to be clear, they're engaged in satanic practices as a department, and so are the people of the state. This is a coven. This is a population of people that practice darkness together. This is how the state of California makes money. This is how the government makes money. This is how celebrities achieve that status. And they do so through the corruption of corrupt police departments like Ontario Police, like Los Angeles Police, that come around and clean up after the fact. They are on the payroll of the corrupt population. This is how Tracy Banks, again, stealing my property, that was a part of compensating the Ontario Police. And it's their job to engage in what is murder, commit murder as an entity that's cooperatively acting to control the narrative after the fact. I'm not going anywhere, and the entity is indeed going to federal prison for gang stalking, okay? The entity has been documented for years engaged in that pattern of conduct and is engaged in targeting in the city of Ontario, where I remain, and doing so pursuant to what is not just anybody, not just anybody in Ontario everywhere that I'm at, meaning they're not targeting everybody else where I'm at in Ontario. The entity is targeting me in Ontario in a very specific environment, a supernatural one. Meaning the fake sun is over my hotel room when they're flying in circles over me. The fake sun is over me at the OVITT Family Community Library while they're flying in circles over me. The fake sun is over me at the Ontario Town Square where they're flying in circles over me. The fake sun is over me while they're flying in circles over me at Tracy Banks' apartment complex at Woodside Senior Apartments. The fake sun is over me while they're flying over me at the Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue. The fake sun is over me while I'm documenting the demons who are the people of the state where the sunset is on the same street at Holt and Euclid Avenue after 6 p.m. Okay? The fake sun is over me when they're flying in circles over me at the Stater Brothers on Holt Boulevard in San Antonio. Okay? The fake sun is over me while they're flying over me while I'm in my hotel room at American Inn. The fake sun is over me while I'm right here at this Starbucks from sunrise until sunset at this Starbucks. And the Ontario Police Department is flying in circles over me. They're not just stalking everybody where I'm at. They're stalking me while a fake sun remains over me. And they practice voodoo, witchcraft. They engage in sex rituals. They engage in gay sex. They engage in group sex. They engage in pedophilia. They engage in bartering with Satan in order to achieve what is monetary gain, in order to get some sort of position of authority that they want. They ask Satan for it. And then they target an innocent person. They sacrifice them. And guess what? They sacrifice the wrong person. They call themselves sacrificing me, and it's not working. And I'm also exposing them. So that's why the Lord permitted them to target me, but it was never going to be successful. It was never going to be successful. The Ontario Police Department is being disbanded. And you are necessarily informed about terrorism that is very real in the United States. And it is also exposing what is the illusion of people that want to present as being mentally fit, being healthy, being normal, being sane, being law-abiding citizens, being people that you can even trust. All right, because that's exactly what demons want. They want you to trust them with their babies. They want you to trust them with your babies, excuse me. They want you to trust them with your money. They want you to trust them in some authority that they can abuse and exploit. All right? This is the demon-possessed that are engaging in gang stalking me. And they're doing so in a very specific environment. Not just the documentation of harassment by the government. The government's harassing me in a specific environment that makes it even more detailed regarding who they are targeting. And it is me. And they're doing so with their co-defendant, Tracy Banks and Jason Isaac Fields, who have engaged in conspiring with the state to target me. That's why LAPD is doing the same thing that these are demons that just lined up 3 of those vehicles as I'm speaking about it in the specific environment while the entity is stalking by helicopter. Those idiots just did that, and I've got a documented pattern of conduct of police just like them stalking me where I'm everywhere that I'm going. The LAPD is stalking by helicopter day, and the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department is stalking by helicopter day and night. The Los Angeles County Fire is stalking by helicopter day and night. And guess where the fake sun is rising and setting? Because it's not on Euclid Avenue. There's only one sun. So you're going to prosecute the demon-possessed, their use of their illusions. They're mentally ill. You're going to prosecute them based on their illusions. Well, based on your illusion, the sun is rising and setting at Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue. Oh, and I have the evidence to prove that. And based on what your illusion, there's no way that the sun would ever even be in LA. It would never, and it's certainly not in LA over my head at my front door in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens facing the hillside. When it's sitting over the top of my head through the window of the Starbucks that's facing south while Edwards is on video at 7:15 in the morning at the same time of year. That would never be possible. And you cannot see the sun through my living room window while it is next to L. Edwards' head at the 507 North Euclid Avenue Starbucks on Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. You cannot see the sun through my living room window and through the window of the Starbucks at the same time from those 2 locations, okay? That's impossible. That's not the case. This is how you're understanding how the specific environment ties to what gets to an even more detailed and unmistakable body of evidence proving that a bunch of number 1 demons and corrupt government officials are targeting me, and they did so for money. They did so to get away with criminal activity they've already committed. They did so to engage in what is murder. Conspiring murder. And these fools in 3 vehicles and then a 4th one while you are also listening to the helicopter that again It's 10:06 p.m. That was at 10:03 p.m. Helicopter activity flying over, just back and forth, just having a field day. Gang stalking. And so was that demon in that vehicle whose license plate I said, with the white male with the mustache. That's federal prison. They're conspiring murder. They're engaged in surveillance. So you're sitting up listening to me. You're keeping me under surveillance. That's already established. And your partners in LA have already demonstrated that. Your partners in Fontana have already demonstrated that. Your partners in Hesperia, California have already demonstrated that. Okay? The entities engaging what is keeping a fake sun over me while I'm living. I don't ever come to Ontario while I'm living and working at Alvarado Gardens. And LAPD is stalking and proven to be stalking because the fake sun doesn't go anywhere. That's where demons are engaged in monitoring. They're stalking. And LAPD is stalking me by helicopter, flying over the helicopter that is flying over me while the fake sun remains all day long while I'm at work, from the start of my shift at 8 a.m. until the end of my shift at 5 p.m. That fake sun does not leave from being outside of my office door, from the east side of my office door to the west side of my office door when I get off of work at 5 o'clock. And that fake sun is rising in alignment to me. I lived at the same apartment complex, building 1806, and then I walked downstairs to building 1810, and guess where that fake sun went? From building 1806 to building 1810, and it never left the property of Alvarado Gardens unless I left the property of Alvarado Gardens. And when it did, it remained over my sunroof through my car, which I documented, and it is already published on the internet. That's how the fake sun is over me at the Glendale DMV. Glendale DMV providing evidence against the Ontario police, who are stalking. And so are these three demons engaged in what is an impermissible threat. The one who you are conspiring to murder, and you're psychologically torturing and threatening in real time while you are sitting up keeping the evidence under surveillance in real time. You're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. That's an unlawful threat upon criminal surveillance, which is committed to engage in murder. There is already evidence supplemental to what I have regarding the P.O.C. regarding conspiracy to commit murder. That's why the Ontario police are stalking me. There's evidence that they're going to deal with. Not only that, they engaged in what is defaming my character while also simultaneously engaging in psychological torture. So you're claiming that I'm crazy on paper, and then you're trying to drive me crazy by psychologically torturing me. That's malice, and you're going to federal prison. You're also engaged in a federal RICO case. You're also engaged in federal stalking under Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2. You're going to federal prison. You're going to federal prison for being defiant. You are an inferior demonic entity. And when I tell you I know what you're doing, and I show the whole world that I know what you're doing, you think that that's a game when you get a warning from the Almighty God, and it's not a game. You're going to prison. That was your warning. You thought nobody saw you, and I see you very clearly. Now, since you wanted to engage in that, now you get publicly exposed. That's what's happening. You can engage in stalking all you want in helicopters. You can engage in using witchcraft. There is no amount of witchcraft or energy siphoning that's going to slow this prosecution down. You're going to prison. Nothing is stopping you. You couldn't repent out of prison if you wanted to. You're going to prison. Every single last one of you. The demons that went out of their way to gang stalk in these three vehicles right here, understand the ordinary target individual's position. I am advocating. I am no less entitled to justice because I am advocating, and I am letting you know and blowing the whistle about what the government is doing. You're going to federal prison. This is what they do when they commit ongoing kidnappings for no reason, snatching them off of the street, just engaging what is turning on their lights and harassing them for no reason. That's where that escalates to. You have no warrant whatsoever. They're stalking and monitoring in the public. You don't, and because you're engaging in that, understand you don't have any warrant or probable cause to gang stalk me at home, to gang stalk me at work, to gang stalk me on the freeway, to gang stalk me on the sidewalk, which you would call private property, where you also do not have a warrant or probable cause to keep me under surveillance as a demon that's monitoring. You don't have it. You don't have it to do with the people of the state either. License plate, AWRU821, license plate. 8MJB712. These demons that are stalking and monitoring my vagina 24 hours a day. Listening to the way that I walk, listening to how many times I swallow, listening to how many times I inhale and exhale, listening to how many times I blink. These are demons. And so are the Ontario police, and you're going to federal prison. And you're going to federal prison because you refuse to humble yourself. So you're going to be openly shamed and embarrassed, and you're going to be prosecuted because it is not a game. It's not a game. The entities engaged in this conduct, and they do this to American citizens that don't have a voice. They do this to people that they are convinced they could get away with it. They're wicked. They're not just criminal and corrupt. They're evil. This is Satan. And this is Satan that's abusing helicopters. This is the mayor. This is the mayor. This is the president of the airport authority. The board of the airport authority. Every last one of them, millions of dollars that they're invested in this system because it makes them a lot of money. Organized crime. You're going to federal prison and you're done with law enforcement. You're not engaging in terrorism. This is no small infraction on your record where you're going to get some administrative hearing and you're going to exercise your due process rights regarding being in law enforcement. No, you don't have those rights. You don't get those steps with regard to terrorism. You're done. You're out. You're not going anywhere else in this country engaging in what is law enforcement. You are permanently done because the line is terrorism. Just like with immigrants, the line is terrorism. And you want to play your music with regard to your refusal and your disdain and your disrespect of this country. And that's why nobody's going to be crying for you when you're dragged out of this country. Because your sentiments are very well heard, Satan. They're very well heard. You don't like this country. That's why you're sitting in California gang stalking with the government who incriminates you. They don't protect you. They incriminate you. And guess what? They're going to find you. They're going to find where you are, and they're going to drag you out of this country. I guarantee it. The entities engaged in this conduct in the Ontario Police is being disbanded, and they're going to federal prison for those very acts of terrorism that American citizens suffer, and they're openly humiliated in front of the people of the state who think that they have some sort of power to wield by engaging in criminal summoning, by engaging in harassment, targeting you, harassing you, and then calling the police on you, making up stuff. You're going to prison. You're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. All right, that's the entity that's engaged in that. And this is the entity that's relying on witchcraft. And guess what? Satan is laughing at them. Satan is having a field day because they fell for it. They fell for it. That's what's engaging in what is impunity. You're engaging in terrorism before the federal government. That's the authority for enforcing what are the rights of this country against foreign enemies, foreign and domestic. So thank you for openly expressing your sentiments toward this country because you're going to be treated accordingly. And when I say federal prison, that's not a suggestion. You're going to federal prison. You're going to federal prison. It is currently 10:13 p.m. This is P.O.C. Pay attention to everything that is going on in the background because the demon-possessed are monitoring. And monitoring is a very personal crime. You're dealing with Satan, who's a spirit. You're dealing with the demon-possessed that are obsessed with the targeted individual, and it's very personal. So I'm speaking about things, like I said before, that type of music, I think it's beautiful. I don't have anything against that. It's beautiful. I love different cultures. The principle there, the point there, the entity is engaging in what is communicating with regard to the deportation policy. That's audible activity. It is not somebody that's just blasting their music. They're all monitoring. It's happening while the entity is also stalking. Again, this is all relevant. The entity is stalking at the same time with helicopter and plane activity, all manner of a threat. You're threatening the wrong person. You're threatening the wrong person. You are threatening the wrong person. The entity is engaging in this conduct, and that's an entity. That's not an individual. And so you want to make sure that you're clear with regard to the immigrants that are engaging in terrorizing American citizens in the state of California, that are going to want to make a plea. Please let me stay. I love this country. No, you don't. No, you don't. And no, you may not. No one is forgetting it. These are the demon-possessed, and they are very low with regard to the intelligence quotient. And they do not understand the implications of what they do. And that's not my problem because you're stupid. It makes it an easy case for me to prosecute. And they do not understand what is going to be the future prospects regarding what they're doing right now. And that's also not my problem. Not my problem. I'm going to prosecute you. The entities engaging in this, it's currently 10:15 p.m. That's the kind of unlawful conduct. That's what ordinary targeted individuals are subject to. And that is exactly what is not going to be tolerated in this country. It is not going to be tolerated. Okay, I want to be clear. Our founding documents, read it. You should read it. You should become familiar with it. Enemies, foreign and domestic. You will be rooted out. Foreign and domestic. That's what this is. They're enemies of this country. They don't even like this country. They hate it. They want to get whatever they can and kill whoever, harm whoever they can. That's why you have the government acting with the population, and then that government, which is the entity. They're not private citizens based on the pattern of conduct. The entity is engaging in what is making these sentiments through their behavior, through your response, through your conduct, what you decide to do in the face of exposure. That's what you do in the United States? Noted. Very much noted. Very much noted. You need to pay attention because this is informing you about what's surrounding you, okay? Satan is a spirit and he's using people, all right? P.O.C. All right, the Ontario Police, again, I want to document because it's currently
10:16 p.m. This is in the engineered environment. This is the entity that's doing so the same thing under the fake sun. I documented after 6 p.m. where the entity was gang stalking on Ontario Town Square. The Ontario police are gang stalking under the fake sun, setting over this same venue while they're driving on what is East Street and gang stalking me in particular. And the entity is doing so while they are engaging in that pattern of conduct. There's not going to be any evidence in court stating I don't know what she's talking about. I was just driving en route. I was going to get a donut. I don't even know anything. You're going to be prosecuted. This is the entity that's engaging in massive heavy-duty hovering surveillance, and that is already proven. And they're doing so with the people of the state. 9BQE 570, license 4ZOY 546, 9LEE 551, 8VZG 344. 8NCX 991. The entities engaged in this pattern of conduct. The ongoing heavy-duty documentation of stalking and terrorizing and harassing by helicopter is already on the record. The entity that's engaging in that in the supernatural environment where the Ontario police are not ignorant, nor are they coincidentally in that environment. They are directly threatening in that environment and engaged in stalking while bearing weapons and wearing badges and representing that agency because they thought that they were big and bad and nobody was ever going to question it. And none of that's happening. None of it. You're going to be prosecuted. And there is no way to engage in anything but threatening an American citizen in that specific environment. Remember, documentation is legally relevant. Once the documentation starts, because you have no business gang stalking in the first place. Once documentation starts, that's it. You're talking about federal prison very rapidly if you're not already crossing that line for federal prison. The Ontario police have been gang stalking for years. That's why they were repeatedly kidnapping me. You're not doing, are you kidding? You're not doing anything other than gang stalking by driving, again, conspicuously on East Street and Euclid Avenue. You can claim all day long, I'm not thinking twice about it. You can say whatever you want, you're going to prison. You can say whatever you want. The entities engage in a pattern of conduct, and that's exactly what those are the delusional psychopaths. You're listening to the ongoing heavy helicopter activity under what's a fake sun that sits over my head. All of these demons are monitoring and stalking together. All of them, including the Ontario police. So you want to engage in cruising? As though you're just claiming, like that's not establishing or demonstrating that you're ignorant about me and that you don't care or that you're defying. Oh, no, I'm not defying anything. I didn't even know Erica Spencer was there. I'm not about who is Erica Spencer. I don't know anything. You can say whatever you want, Satan. You're going to be prosecuted and your buddies are going to prison. Everybody that I documented, you're engaged in a series of very serious federal crimes. And it is what is terrorism. And guess what? You're going to prison for that. And terrorists like you are going to be targeted accordingly. All right, the entity's engaging in that, and there is no amount of witchcraft that's going to change that result, and there is also no negotiation because you established before we got into court what you are and what you deserve, and there's no negotiating. I don't negotiate with terrorists. There will be no negotiations. You're going to prison. All right, it's currently 10:19 p.m. 10:37 p.m. The entity's stalking by commercial plane. All right, plane activity at 10:39 p.m. The video is uploading to X. Images of the demon operating vehicle 1042 of the Ontario Police is uploaded. And the list of kidnappers of the Ontario Police who are going to prison is uploading onto X. While the City of Ontario, the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking, criminally monitoring and doing so. Again, those are seconds apart. This is an activity that's not published on the website, and those arrivals and departures are typically published, and there is a substantial amount of time. There's time in between. The entity is stalking every 30 seconds using planes pursuant to what I'm doing on my devices and what I'm doing, and while they're acting with the Ontario Police in front of me with helicopter, behind me with planes, while engineer lights flying all over the place. This is the entity monitoring with the Ontario Police who are gang stalking, and while it's being published on X, which is also going to be used to prosecute the state, the entities engaged in gang stalking me with the people, the defendants themselves are keeping the evidence under surveillance, and that's coloring the crime. Very serious crime. Okay, P.O.C. it's 10:40. (9MMD201). Gang stalking with, again, the Ontario International Airport at ARCO, which you'll see that in images at 11:18 p.m. And Cool Transport is gang stalking at the ARCO, again, at 434 North Euclid Avenue. They're creating light activity in the engineered environment. While doing so, it's corrupt businesses, and they're monitoring right now. This is the demon making noise. 89887W3 P.O.C. Okay? The Ontario International Airport is stalking by flying over here in the sky space. No planes are arriving or departing. Cool Transports is monitoring on the internet, monitoring on communication devices with the government that's using planes to engage in surveillance with them. And so is that third party. She's engaged in running a light that's engaging what is, again, and assault, threatening me while she's gang stalking. That's while she's engaging in that pattern of conduct. That's a third party. It's audible activity. Anyway, it's currently 11:20 p.m. This is P.O.C.
Can you listen?
7RG 130. That's criminal summoning. This is what Ontario Fire monitoring. First of all, me. Second of all, what's uploading onto the ARCO Wi-Fi network. And so is, again, the demons are just replacing each other. This is called crossing path. My shadow's appearing on that vehicle. All right, this is the P.O.C. This is what they were doing with the Ontario Police. 7SWB 030. They're driving in engineer light, sounding sirens in engineer light, using the lights on a fire truck. The demons of the Ontario Police are cockroaches pacing all around in the perimeter, stalking together as an entity. The Ontario International Airport is gang stalking using commercial planes flying over. And here's my shadow appearing at a distance in front of me. Okay, that's a demon that's gang stalking with the city of Ontario. Planes, helicopters, fire, police, and ambulance. Gang stalking. This is P.O.C. This is federal stalking on the venue of the internet. The podcast is being published right now. This is internet, monitoring on the venue of the internet. And this is, again, criminal activity on ARCO's Wi-Fi network. That's Michael GERKEN that's engaged in monitoring my vagina. Sex offenders that are conspiring my murder, gang stalking with the population. P.O.C. And this is the street where also the fake sun rises and sets in alignment to me. P.O.C. That's Ontario Police stalking. They are indeed being disbanded. They're going to federal prison. This is criminal surveillance. P.O.C.
All right, demons stalking with light, 9TID 854. These are demons stalking in the middle of the night. You'll see a demon in the parking lot of the Housing Authority on Lemon, stalking in perfect alignment with me. This is what they do with the fake sun, stalking in perfect alignment. That's the outward demonstration of mental illness. That's a threat by the entity that is stalking you by light in order to keep you under surveillance. And this is what the Ontario Police Department are doing as well. License 9MHV 747. You will see, in order to break down this demonic system and demonic behavior, which is mental illness manifest, and criminal activity, admittedly. Okay, and I'm taking pictures and I'm also giving you screenshots regarding what the statements of the demon possessed include. It is a warning to you about the entity that's engaging in what is the behavior of demons. And demons are stalking with light, engineered light, peculiar light, light activity that is impossible to naturally occur. Okay, 5SLH073. And the pictures of demons that are stalking in the middle of the night, it's 11:55 p.m. are pictures of people who are demon possessed, who are stalking me specifically, only me, and they're doing so with regard to knowledge of who I am, what I'm doing, and the state of my vagina. Okay, and that sexual obsession is shared by the Ontario Police Department and the Ontario Fire Department and the Chino Valley Fire Department, who are roaming the streets gang stalking me after I've published the updated podcast for September 12, 2025. And psychopaths pace around monitoring hostile and flashing engineered light like psychopaths who need to be disbanded, i.e. the Ontario Police. 9DTD098. Those are psychopaths that are stalking with loud noise. That's psychopathic. They're demons that are monitoring. They're going to be committed. They're going to be prosecuted. This is what's wrong with them. And these are the serial killers. These are the terrorists in Ontario, and they're stalking with light. So I'm showing you the demons. I'm at 415 North Euclid Avenue, Gloria's Cochinas. These are demons that are stalking with light. They're sex offenders. They're also psychopaths who are in the middle of the night stalking me while I'm outside. And presumably you have somewhere to live, but you are leaving, abandoning where you live to be outside and stalk me and listen to me inhale and exhale and watch me breathe. Okay, sit around and listen to how many times my heart is beating. These are demons that are obsessed with me. And that obsession is shared by the Ontario Police, who's engaging in criminal activity, and they're doing it in front of everyone, and they're doing it regarding what is evidence that's already surrounding them. While there is no ignorance about who I am, what I'm saying, while you're present in the path, it's being legally analyzed and you're going to be prosecuted for it. That's what the Ontario Police Department is doing, pursuant to the same ceaseless P.O.C. Stalking with light as demons, stalking using the resources of a department to engage in criminal activity, not law enforcement. They're all focused on me. Okay, while demons are stalking in the middle of the night. License 7BSW 912, 9PER 798, 8GXU 557. Okay, I have two shadows on the sidewalk adjacent to each other. All the noise is pursuant to monitoring me. 26909E4. Okay, POC.
A demon stalking with light, as I turn around and walk in the opposite direction, those are the predators that are stalking in the path, okay? I've got the basketball, they're blocking the path, making sure that they're in the way, and they're listening to me document. License 7KKT375 is a predator, okay? That's the P.O.C. That's what they do to make sure that they're in the path when I'm going in and out of the bathroom. And when I'm in the bathroom, they chase me into bathrooms to make sure that they're staying in the path. Also, especially when my panties are down. They want to be right there. Okay? That's a testimony of a demon that knows that it's true. That's speaking to the amplified audible activity. They're doing that in engineered light. Sex offenders that are demon possessed are mad about being addressed as what they are, sex offenders. Just like homosexuals that are obsessed with my vagina, that seek out my bodily fluids to ingest them, and then pray to Satan and jump up and down under a fake moon in the middle of the night praying to demons while they're engaged in what is gang stalking me, thinking that they're going to manifest my life or some sort of Disney movie where they got these ideas out of hell. Those are the demons that are hostile because they're addressed as what they are, lesbians. Homosexuals who are stalking and obsessed with another woman in another woman's vagina. You're a homosexual, all right? You're also a predator and you're a psychopath. While you're engaging in that as the female gender of demons who are gang stalking in California. Every single last one of you just heard what I said. You're a bunch of lesbians obsessed with my vagina that you will never ever take or exchange. Your mileage is your mileage, okay? And you can't exchange it with mine. The entity is engaging, and by the way, being a stalker is not going to manifest anything other than a federal prosecution for being a sex offender. That's what you're getting from me, okay? This is the entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct, and the amplified audible noise, as I'm referring to sex offenders, are sex offenders that are hostile to being addressed with facts and information. They don't reason, okay? They don't exercise logic. All they do is pace and stalk with light. Okay, and engage in conduct and then try to flee away. All right, that's what the flinging with impossible light is. It's supposed to be something where you don't know what they're doing and Satan is fleeing away with the engineer light. They're psychopaths. Okay, it's the outward proof of their mental illness, and it's going to be used to commit them. They're going to be committed. You're going to see it. License plate, stalking with light. All right, this is a demon coming out of Gloria's Cochinas with his lesbian girlfriend, because she's monitoring me, and so is he. 9PBL437. P.O.C. It's currently 11:59 p.m.